Hello and welcome to part 2 of JBR's 5th birthday extravaganza. Once again, apologies, my microphone is a little bit dodgy this week. I promise next time I will check the settings and make sure I'm not coming through too distorted. So sorry about that. On with the show.
Hi, this is Roger Moore and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello James Bond Radio listeners and welcome to episode 157, which is part 2 of the JBR 5th anniversary Bumper Bonanza Fancast episode. With me, as always, is the man with the very soothing tones of Mr. Tom Sears. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing very well. The man with the soothing tones. That sounds like a wonderful Bond film from the late 50s to early 60s. The man with the soothing tones. Absolutely. Now, we've got 3 more JBR listeners to talk to today, Chris. It's obviously 5th birthday celebrations part 2. The JBR will return next week, obviously, with the musical episodes. So JW will be helming those and talking Bond music with some JBR listeners. But this week, we have got 3 intrepid listeners. Chris, would you like to know who they are?
I certainly would.
From Surrey, we have Mr. Stan Luca. From upstate New York, we have Mr. Dennis James Hardin. And then from Took North, good old England, we've got Mr. Gary Bootle. Are you excited to talk to those 3?
I absolutely am. I really enjoyed last week, actually. It was a good range of people to chat to. And again, I think we've got a good mix coming up. So, it's just interesting to see how it all started with everyone, isn't it? And what really sort of floats their boat when it comes to Bond. So should we get stuck in?
Let's do it without any further ado. Let's talk to Mr. Stan Luca.
Who are you?
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British hand up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy. As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
And now for our 4th person for the 5th anniversary Fancast episode is Mr. Stan Luca. Welcome to the show, Stan.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
How's it going, dude? Hey, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Surrey.
Very nice too.
Classic You Only Live Twice location.
Very nice. Cool stuff.
Very good. And what's have you got blue sky and sunshine going? Any snow still left over, or?
There's a little bit of snow. Most of it's been melted. We were one of the areas that didn't really get the snow.
Oh, that's a shame. You couldn't do your couldn't do your Lazenby and get some skis on in the garden and.
I wish.
Yeah.
I've never skied. But...
Okay.
Now, before we crack on with the questions, it must be said I noticed a little something on the wall behind you there that looks octopusy related. So tell me what that is. What you got going on?
I do have someone watching over me today. It is. My dad bought this on eBay for £20. Good,
Nice.
10, 15 years ago. It's original film cells from Octopussy.
Nice.
That is class. Do you know?
Nice
Which parts of the film are they from? There's 4 of them there, is there?
There's 4 of them. We've got Bond and Octopussy talking there. I'll try and hold it up a bit closer.
Yeah.
Just a shot of Octopussy there, good old Maud. A shot of the wonderful Louis Jourdan there.
Lovely.
And, of course, Sir Roger as a clown.
Nice.
The classic.
Beautiful stuff. Is there an autograph on there? I think it looks like it's signed.
No, there isn't, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
It's, just 4 bits of film and a postcard.
Lovely.
looks
It was
brilliant.
only 20 quid, but nice bit of Bond memorabilia to have.
Beautiful stuff.
Good find.
All
Good
right.
find.
Good stuff. So without any further ado then, Stan, let's get cracking. Let's get to know who you are as a Bond fan. I want to know what flavours of Bond you like, what flavours of Bond you don't like. So I'm going to knock it out of the park with the first question. What is your favourite Bond film?
Now, I'm going to go with a bit of a curveball here that I'm sure not many people say,
All right.
which is on Her
67?
Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh, there we go. I thought you were going to say
Nice.
67 Casino Royale then, but
I've got to admit, I've never actually seen that one.
oh, that's all right.
I don't think
Nice.
you're missing much, to be honest. I don't think I've ever actually watched it all the way through. I remember I bought the VHS once from HMV in Newport on the Isle of Wight, and I think I probably made it about an hour and a bit through it, and you're not missing a lot, to be honest, if we're being truthful. But cool. So what is it about Majesties that you like so much? Good choice.
Well, I think Lazenby, he's liked by Bond fans now, but overall he's pretty underrated as Bond. I think he knocked it out of the park. A lot of people say about having Connery instead of Lazenby in that film would have made it perfect, but I don't think Connery could have done the sort of emotional side and the vulnerability that Lazenby brings to the role, and I don't think the romance with Tracy would have been as believable without him. Talking of Tracy, I think Diana Rigg is amazing as a Bond girl. I think she plays it really well. And Savalas is just, in my eyes, the quintessential Blofeld.
Interesting.
He's the one most like the novels. He's just a big, burly bruiser of a dude who also happens to be a criminal genius.
It's funny that, isn't it? There's a lot of questions I could ask you that from what you just said. But I suppose let's start with Blofeld, because it's the image of Blofeld that most people would say is obviously white pussycat, sitting in his big pointy chair, scar down the eye, Dr. Evil styly Blofeld. That's like the iconic one, isn't it? But like you say, when you read Blofeld of the books, he's like a burly bruiser of a geezer, isn't he? He's not this tiny little sort of shrinking man. He's like a big dude. So it's interesting. Yeah. So based on that, Telly is the closest that we've ever had to the actual Blofeld, isn't he?
Yeah. He is, yeah. And like you say about Pleasant Blofeld, he's just a bit of a little creep. And the scar was an inspired decision, I think, to really give it a look, which obviously now has been completely pastiched by Austin Powers and everyone else. But I just think the idea that he's terrifying both with his mind and his body is just a brilliant way to have Blofeld. And it would have been great to see Savalas come back for another one in Diamonds had Lazenby stayed on.
That's an interesting one, that. If obviously you talk a lot about the Felixes and they change quite frequently, and obviously the Blofelds, but having a recurring Blofeld, I think if you had to choose one recurring Blofeld, obviously you had the from Russia and Thunderball, but that aside, I think it would have to be Telly Savalas doing Diamonds as well, because obviously Donald Pleasance wouldn't. When you've got a role where he's got to be physical, he's got to fight Bond, he's got to go on the bobsled, he's got to do all this sort of stuff. Donald Pleasance isn't going to be able to do that. And equally, if Charles Gray had done Majesties as the first one, that wouldn't have worked either, would it? I think Savalas really fits a bill. No, not at all.
I mean, I love Charles Gray's Blofeld, but not for Majesties.
No. And I think there's something else I just wanted to pick up. Obviously, you mentioned George being, a really decent Bond. And I think you get the people that will just dismiss him straight away, saying, "Oh, he's done one film, he's crap." You get the people that can appreciate and watch Majesties and go, "Oh, he's for what he did. He wasn't an actor; he did all right, and he's particularly good in the fight scenes." And you'll get that level. But there is another level above that, where if you watch the film, he is so good with some of the humorous one-liners. And, that part where he's being taken to Draco's, mystery tour, and all that sort of stuff. You've got that. You've got him walking down into the casino, owning that scene. Like just the confidence that he exudes in that scene. And equally, when he's wearing the kilt with all the Blofeld Angels of Death. And I think it's too easy to say he's a shit actor or he did all right, but he's a good fighter, and that's it. And I think because of that, the other aspects of his character, which he does do well, often get overlooked. So it's really good that you obviously can appreciate that and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he often ends up at the bottom of lists as well, just for the sake that he's done one, and it's just that age-old question of what would have been if he hadn't listened to his agent and he had stuck with it.
I tell you what, man, I've said it before and I will say it again. I think when you look back at how George got the part, when he just literally just had a gigantic pair of balls on him, walked straight into that office, I hear you're looking for James Bond, and just blagged his way through. That is the most Bondian way of doing things. Like, that is embodying Bond to get that role. And like that story of when he went into Saltzman's office and he tells him to sit down and he didn't, and he went and looked out the window and stuff. And just like that sort of arrogance and like, just total confidence and just not giving a fuck is like, you need that quality in Bond. Like, that's a key part of his character. And I'm like, I don't care what anybody says. If the dude was an untrained actor, he was an untrained actor. And obviously there are some scenes where he might be a bit stiffer or whatever, but fuck it. He embodies Bond from before he even had the role. And it's just like, if you'd have given him another couple of movies at least, just to kind of like sink into the role a little bit more, man, I would love to see those movies, man. My number one desire, if I could change history, would be to have him do his Diamonds Are Forever. I'd keep Peter Hunt directing it, have him do Diamonds Are Forever, shoot it immediately afterwards. Oh God, I want to see that film.
So would I. My only worry would be if that happened, we wouldn't get Rog.
Yeah,
that is true.
That is the other way around. Yeah,
it's hard to know what is because of what might you not get if you do get the things you want.
This is it. Because I guess if he'd done 2 films, he would have most likely have done 3, 4, 5. Who knows? So
and then you probably wouldn't have got Winton Kid either. And I love Winton Kid. So oh God,
all these what ifs. So on the question 2 then, Stan, are you a bit of a book man in terms of, do you read the Flemings, the Bentons, the Gardners, and do you ultimately have like a favourite James Bond book?
Yeah, Flemings, yes. Currently just coming to the end of yet another reread. My fiance's always telling me to read new books, but I just always come back to Bond. I haven't read any of the continuations except for the 2 Horowitz ones. And Tom, it seems you're quite a fan of Forever and a Day.
Oof. You weren't keen?
But, I did enjoy it. It felt a bit box ticky at points. I thought, like, okay, this is how Bond got his cigarettes. This is how Bond got his drink.
Yeah.
And they all seem to come from 16. But other than that, I thought it was a fantastic book. But my favourite, it changes all the time. But I think I would go with Goldfinger at the moment.
Ah, okay, that's a solid one. Yeah.
What is it about the Goldfinger novel that does it for you?
I mean, the film was one of my favourites growing up, but I think it can be said that the film doesn't really make a lot of sense as you go through it, which is fine because it's iconic and it's still incredibly entertaining. But the book, how Bond infiltrates Goldfinger's organisation, I always love it when Bond's infiltrating, like he does in Licence to Kill, and he does that in the novels quite a lot, because Goldfinger knows he's in MI6 and he's against him in the film when he's got him on the table, but lets him live anyway. That doesn't really make sense. But then in the books, he becomes Goldfinger's secretary, along with Tilly Masterton, and he's taking the minutes and helping Goldfinger suss out these gangsters. And I just think it's so well written, and I think the final fight he has on the plane is just really brutal. The way he just chokes Goldfinger to death just gets me every time.
This is the second time we've been interviewing people all day for the birthday episode, and this is the second time I've been inspired to pick up a book again, because it's been a while since I've read Goldfinger. I need to reread that one. It's been a while. Do you know what? You saying that, Bond does remarkably little spying for the greatest spy in all of film and book history. And I feel like we need a deep undercover Bond at some point in the future again. Where he's got a fake name, he's deep undercover like he was in Licence, like you say, and some actual spying. I want to see him sneaking around somebody's bedroom, going through some secret papers, all that kind of stuff.
And poking the nest a little bit as well while he's doing it. That's underneath the villain's skin. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the one in Thunderball when he keeps dropping the word Spectre to Largo.
Yeah.
And the looks he's getting is fantastic.
Yeah, just the cockiness, the way he delivers that. That's one of my favourites. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Do you ever listen to any of the audiobooks, Stan? Or is it purely...
I haven't, actually. The only foray into audiobooks would be the Spy Who Loved Me that you did, Tom, with Dan.
Oh, nice.
But I've never really been an audiobook guy. I have a lot of podcasts on the go, so I tend to listen to podcasts when I'm commuting or whatever rather than audiobooks. And I guess I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I don't like using e-readers or anything like that. I just love having the book in my hands and
nice,
tuning out.
Cool stuff. So, next question then: who is your favourite Bond actor?
Pierce Brosnan.
I thought you were going to say George there. So it's Pierce. All right, cool. Give me some about that. Tell me what's been going on with Pierce.
To me, Pierce Brosnan is the Bond that had it all. He had the charm and the humour of Roger Moore down. I mean, I think he was the only one really, other than Roger, to really nail the humour. And the charm. I mean, he's a damn good looking man, and he looks so cool in all of his films, especially Tomorrow Never Dies, as you said. In fact, my fiance, when she went to see that film you love, Tom, the one with all the singing.
Oh yeah.
She turned to her friend when he was on the screen and said, "He can pierce my Brosnan any day."
Nice, I like
what
that.
What a line!
Yeah.
What a line, I know. But I'd have to agree with that. But then also he's got the ruthlessness of Connery. You know, he really does have his dark moments in his films. I think it can be argued that he didn't have the best films. I mean, I like all his films, including Die Another Day, but compared with some of the other Bonds, he did not have the strongest material to work with. But I just think he pulled off the role and had so much fun in it that he's just my quintessential Bond.
I think that adds to it as well when the Bond actor is enjoying what they're doing and they're having fun and they're being Bond, but it's almost their fun is coming across on screen. And if they're having a good time, you're going to notice that, aren't you? And I think obviously Brosnan really, really enjoyed it. And you see him in interviews around the time of filming, and he's just a bubbly, energetic, joyful person, isn't he? Purely because he's being James Bond, something which he was thinking about since he's a little kid, sort of thing. So,
and it's most young boys' dream to be James Bond, and it's just really refreshing when you get an actor who's clearly just absolutely having a whale of a time doing it, while also knocking it out of the park.
You know, it's not every time, but when you look back throughout all the movies and that, there's always something extra special when there's Fleming material on the screen. You know, it's like obviously Connery had it lucky with just one after the other with, you know, Fleming material in that, and obviously Majesties and all the rest of it. And it's for me, the first time you see the series take a slight dip is with You Only Live Twice, because obviously it's a Fleming title in that, but it's not the Fleming story. You know, it's a different thing. And Pierce is the unlucky one in the sense that he just had no Fleming material in any of his films. It's all original stuff. And then, you know, like we discovered with Tomorrow Never Dies recently, it's kind of like that was being written as it was filmed, and it was all a rush job and all that kind of stuff. It's like when you're under conditions like that, you don't have much of a chance to make anything truly special. And of course there are exceptions, like, you know, Spy Who Loved Me is completely different to the book, yet that's a special Bond film, and GoldenEye I would rate the same. But it's a tough one for poor old Brosnan, because like you say, I feel like he just, if they'd have gone back to the Fleming and been like, okay, let's get some Fleming in there, that would have been lovely to see, and we just never got any of it, sadly. But I'm in full agreement, man. Anybody who slags off Brosnan, which is a fashionable thing to do these days, can fuck off as far as I'm concerned, because he's the bollocks, man. I don't care what anybody says. He's smooth, he's suave, he's got the humour, he's got the sort of like the cockiness, you know. He's got that. And and like you say, he's got the darkness in him as well. Shoot an Electric King point blank in the face. It doesn't get much darker than that, you know. I think he's the bollocks. I ultimately, he needed some Fleming story in there, and, you know, maybe a bit more, 6 months more development from Tomorrow Never Dies. We'll find out about The World Is Not Enough and Die Another Day shortly, I'm sure. But yeah, what a geez as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, there is something to keep in mind when Another Day is that there is an argument that it is an adaptation of the novel of Moonraker.
Yeah.
There are a lot
Gustav
of similarities
Graves, isn't it? Gustav Graves is meant to be Hugo Drax, of the novel. Sort of thing.
And Frost was originally named Gala Brand in the script before they changed it. And there are a lot of similarities, you know, building something that's supposed to help the world or help England, but actually he's planning to destroy it. There's a lot of similarities there. I wouldn't go as far to say as it is an adaptation, but
maybe that's his best one, and I've just forgotten it. And I just don't know. Holy shit!
It's not.
Maybe I think you'll find out next time we watch it. I tell you what, Gala Brand. Now that is a Bond girl character that I'd like to see on the screen at some point. Like really, really, really strong character, and one that ultimately Bond doesn't doesn't get with. She's obviously with someone else, and I think that would be quite nice to see as a one-off in a future Bond film. So hopefully that will be used at some point. We'll have to see. But on the topics of Bond girls, question 4, Stan. Who would you say, and you can get 2 answers for this, one in terms of character, obviously one, who's your dirty bitch Bond? We're going with that now, aren't we, Tom? One who you'd marry and one who's your dirty bitch Bond. We've got new rules now.
Your dirty bitch Bond? Which one would that be?
Dirty bitch Bond girl.
That would be Pierce.
Yeah, that would be Pierce, yeah. So you get 2 choices. Who are you going to choose, Stan?
I'll go with character first. Sticking with the same theme, it would be Tracy. I find the romance in the film and the novel is believable. You actually believe Bond could fall in love with this woman. I think Diana Rigg plays her so well. She looks amazing, and she absolutely kicks ass in the final fight scene. So just a really strong character all round, I think. As far as the dirty bitch Bond girl, I'd have to go with everyone's favourite Spectre redhead. She makes the middle of that film really special to watch. Irma Bunt.
Hey.
Nice.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to back you up all the way on that one, Stan. In fact, someone else, one of the listeners mentioned Fiona as well, and yes, she likes wild things, so I'm sure we could sort that out. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm not that wild. But,
beautiful stuff. All right, then next question. Let's get musical, Stan. What is your favourite theme song, and also what is your favourite score?
Now theme song, I kind of got 2 answers for this one, for different reasons. Musically, the one I just love to listen to is "You Know My Name." I think just the whole composition of it is amazing. The sort of rock guitar with the big band classic Bond brass is brilliant. Chris Cornell's voice is just brilliant throughout, and I just love the cockiness of it. It really suits like a Bond at the start of his career. Like, you can't mess with me. You know who I am. That sort of thing, and it's just real sort of balls out, manly Bond song, and it's really good to listen to. But then also, Nobody Does It Better has a place in my heart. I just think it's a lovely ballad. I like most of the Bond ballads, but Nobody Does It Better, obviously, because of the connection to Sir Raj, and also because my fiance, she's not a big Bond fan, but she is a Carly Simon fan, and she's agreed to have it as our first dance at our wedding. So.
Really?
Nice.
That's cool. Nice.
Excellent stuff.
So I lucked out getting a Bond song there.
Are you allowed to have "You Know My Name" as well, and you can strut your stuff on the dance floor when it comes?
Yeah, maybe when she's coming up the aisle or something like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Beautiful stuff. You know what? That song, "You Know My Name," is an absolute belter. I think that's a perfect example of them not going for the popular vote. It's Adele was a great choice. She did a great song and stuff. And you see, obviously, she's like the biggest singer in the world. So it's kind of like, okay, that's a great person to sing a Bond song because you're guaranteed number one. And, it is an obvious choice, totally. And she suits it as well, But something like Chris Cornell is so out of left field. I would never have predicted that in a million years, no matter how many guesses you gave me. And that's a dude, God rest his soul, who really respected it, didn't he? He didn't just kick out a monstrosity like Madonna. She had a song sitting in the drawer. Oh yeah, this will do. Stick it out. Sigmund Freud analysed this. Fuck off. Like, he's the one that sat down. He obviously read the story. He got the flavours of all of that, and he reproduced it in the lyrics in the song, and wrote an absolute belter. And you can't not love that song, even if you don't like the rocky stuff. The quality of that song and the heart and soul he put into those words is brilliant. Like, that for me is, oh God, it's difficult to rate them because there's so many good songs, but that's got to be a top 10 Bond song for sure. Like, maybe even top 5. I don't know. It's a great one.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and of course you went and saw it in concert as well, and I did too on the Sunday, and live with the full orchestra, it was truly something special.
It's one of those ones where you can't help but get those little shivers when you listen to it, the hair
I've got them
stand
now.
on end.
I'm just thinking about it, and I've got them. Yeah. Do you know?
It's crazy, isn't it?
There was rumor that David Arnold was trying to get him across to sing that at the Albert Hall performance, to come out and sing that, and he died literally just before that happened, I think. So it was like, damn, I mean, how amazing would that have been for him to walk out and sing that live?
Yeah, I mean, when David Arnold was doing the Q&A, you could hear him getting a little bit choked up when he was talking about Chris Cornell and having him there.
And I guess it was David Arnold who brought Chris Cornell in it, wasn't it? It was David Arnold whose choice was Chris Cornell to sing the song. So obviously Chris Cornell, amazing and brilliant, but respect to David Arnold as well for having that sort of left field choice, and obviously knowing how he could contribute to that song and be, you know, with that voice as well, so sort of grungy and powerful that, you know, there's only few people that could have sung it as well as Chris. Well, there's only one person that could have sung it as well, and hardly any that could, you know, almost match it type thing. So respect to David Arnold for that as well. Yeah. Cracking. Okay, then on to question 6, Stan. What Bond location would you like to visit the most, and what Bond location have you visited that you've enjoyed visiting the most?
Have I visited? I don't really think I've got one, unfortunately. I'm not a very well-travelled person. Seen a couple of the locations in London and stuff, but for the most part, I haven't got around to it yet. The one I'd most like to, I think, is Jamaica. It is sort of the quintessential Bond location that, you know, Fleming obviously wrote his novels in, and so many of his books were set there. And obviously he's gone there a good few times in the films as well. But it just seems like an absolute paradise. And obviously you could go and see GoldenEye. I think my fiance's set on staying in GoldenEye for a night if we go for our honeymoon.
Nice.
Nice.
How expensive it is, but she's I'd wangle it, I think.
I tell you what, sounds like you've got yourself a good woman there, Stan. I like she's you know, Bond song at the wedding, Bond involved in the honeymoon. I like it. Good stuff. Good choice.
It's good considering she doesn't really like James Bond. So
maybe she's not that good then. I'll take it back.
But she likes
GoldenEye though. Nice. Oh, does she? Oh, that's good. But a night in GoldenEye, that would be fantastic. So if you rocked up in Jamaica, you did your night in GoldenEye, would there be any allowance for you to check out some other locations while you're there, or would it be strictly sort of, you know, honeymoon, do stuff with the missus? Would there be any location spotting as well, or not?
I think I could work it in. I think I could do what I've heard you guys say, and some of the other people on JBR say, of where you suggest a place to go and you say how lovely it is. You just don't mention it's Bond until you get there and you get to take a photo.
Yes. Absolutely,
100%.
That is spot on. Sneaky planning.
She's like, why are you holding your finger up like this? Like, why? No reason at all. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, good stuff. So, where did it all begin for you? Where did your Bond fandom begin? When was that moment?
Now, I'm not entirely sure because it's between two. I remember very clearly my dad sitting my brother and I down to watch From Russia with Love, which I think is how a lot of people's Bond love starts, is their dad showing them an old film. I'm not sure if that was first or GoldenEye, because I was only 3 when GoldenEye came out, but it was one of those films that we had taped off the TV, so we watched it all the time. So I'm wondering if we watched GoldenEye a lot, so my dad said, "Oh no, come, let's watch the real Bond." My dad's, you know, hard Connery nut through. And going out in the garden afterwards and just playing James Bond with my brother for ages, and from then I was just hooked. You remember they used to have the stands with the VHSs on in Woolworths, and I'm not sure how long it took us, but we'd get 2 or 3 every now and again when we went in, and slowly built up the collection of all the videos, which I still have in a box somewhere up to die another day, and collected the cars as well, and I was just completely hooked.
Nice.
And what about your brother? Did he follow that path? Has he become much of a Bond fan, or was it sort of a one-off thing for him?
He enjoyed it growing up. He used to watch them together when we were kids on videos. You know, we'd pick one out of the 20 tapes we had and watch them together. I don't think he sort of followed me into the hardcore fandom. But we still chat about it now and then.
That's good.
But, yeah.
So, is there ever an opportunity where you go to see your parents, go to see your folks, your brother's there, maybe it's Christmas or whatever with your dad, and there's a Bond film on, and you have like a family day watching Bond, a family afternoon? Would that ever happen, or not so much these days?
No, I don't think it would happen. Unfortunately, still have my dad round for Christmas and stuff, but obviously my fiance and her mum would be there, so I don't think I could wangle Christmas to be Bond. I chat about Bond with my dad a lot. He showed me the Trivial Pursuit deck, gave it to me, and
Nice.
just didn't understand I was getting them. I've been giving him the continuation novels and stuff, so we still talk a good bit of Bond.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. I like that, keeping it going. And it's all about passing it on through the generations, I think. That's keeping the Bond love alive, isn't it? Definitely. Yeah. Well, I guess going on to sort of the final sort of question, Stan. Now, this is a biggie. Valentine's Day next year, 2020. We're talking the long, long-awaited release of Bond 25. Now, if it was up to you, what sort of story would you have? What do you want to see out of Bond 25?
Now, if we go back to Spectre first, I mean, I sort of blew hot and cold on that one. Loved it in the cinema, and then when I rewatched it, I absolutely hated it, if I'm honest. And then I watched it a couple more times, and it's grown on me again. And as much as I feel we should have a bit of closure on the whole Blofeld and Spectre thing in Bond 25, the Shatterhand idea would be great. I'm not sure how well You Only Live Twice would translate onto film. But I'm sure, like they did with Casino Royale, they could flesh it out. They could really do something with it. So that would be something nice to see. And it's looking more and more likely with Swan coming back. But I would equally be happy with something completely unrelated and completely out there and different. I'd like if they kept a bit of the humour from Spectre, because I think that the humour in Spectre sort of landed really well, at least with me. I know a lot of sort of more casual Bond fans didn't like the return to that, but I was happy with that. But I think it's about the execution, really, rather than the ideas this time. I think we really want Daniel to go out on a high, because Bond actors don't really often get to. So it'd be nice to see him knock out the part of the last one. Maybe they leave it open whether he's dead or not at the end. I don't know. Something like that would be quite interesting. But I think it's in the execution on this one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Like
you say, that Shatterhand story, there's some proper bananas stuff in that book, isn't there? Where it's Blofeld and Irma Bunt shacked up in a castle in Japan. He's wandering around dressed in a suit of armour, isn't he? Like, he's proper bananas. Then Bond falling off a hot air balloon and bashing his head and getting amnesia and shacking up with the Japanese lady and fathering a child. And it's out
coming
there,
back
isn't
and
it?
trying to kill out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's probably out there, but I feel like, the bones of that story you could totally do. You obviously don't. You'd probably tone down some aspects of it, but like that Garden of Death, I mean, I feel like that is ripe, because it's like that's the Majesty's thing, isn't it? When he's cooking up his virus up there on Peace Gloria, the Garden of Death is a perfect sort of like follow-on from that kind of idea, isn't it? On biological warfare, Blofeld and biological warfare. It could be something along those lines. Like, oh man, that's what I want to see from Bond 25 is that Shatterhand story. I do want Blofeld back. Yeah. The stepbrother thing, I think they can sweep that under the rug pretty easily by just not mentioning it. But it'll be interesting to see. But I feel like if Swan's coming back, I feel like Blofeld has to be involved in some way. You can't just not mention him. That would be weird if you had Swan back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult nowadays, because I think nowadays you don't sort of recast parts as much as you could back then. I know Christoph Waltz said he isn't returning. I don't think he was entirely happy with Spectre, so I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't. Great if he would, because I think he could really nail Blofeld if given a second chance. Yeah. But they could just recast him. They could wave it away with plastic surgery like they had before. Yeah. Whatever. It doesn't
Making mud pies 007. That would be nice if they rock that quote out again.
Yeah. Or, I mean, something that Tom and I have mentioned before is maybe they're being a bit sneaky in terms of Christoph Waltz, and you know how you get non-disclosure agreements where basically if a cast member signed on, they're like not allowed to say anything. Maybe it could be almost the reverse of that and say, right, you have to say that you're not involved, and that's contractual. So whenever he's asked, he just says no, nothing to do with it, and so it's kind of swept under the carpet. But actually, maybe there is a sneaky sort of few scenes of him in it. But as we said before, it's so difficult these days to try and keep anything a secret with social media access and stuff like that. It'd be so difficult for anything like that to happen. But I mean, the chances of Bond sort of going on a standalone mission without a Spectre is probably a bit slim in terms of how the storyline is, but it would be nice to see that. And it's really cool to hear that you're in the humor side, because I know both Tom and I, when we came out of Spectre, we were like, there's so many nice one-liners that Dan did, because he hadn't been given the chance to do that before, really. Obviously, there are a few lines in Casino Royale, but not quite the same. And he can do it, and he pulled them off, and I thought he did it really well. And I think, I think it would be nice to see. But there is one thing about him going out on like an amazing film, an absolutely banging film. We want that because he's been so good as Bond, and we really want to see him going off like in an absolute blast. But there's also the potential thing that maybe the last Bond film should perhaps not be so good, so the next Bond actor that comes in has a bit of an easier ride of things. So there's always that to consider as well.
Nice one, and there's something in that, I think, because it would get people excited for the next Bond, rather than how Daniel got dragged through the mud before everyone saw Casino Royale. And I think that might be an even worse if Daniel went out on an amazing high. They said they're going to cast a new one, and they cast someone that people think, I don't like him. He's a bit short, or whatever useless thing they come out of this time. And make it really difficult for that Bond to put their stamp on, unless they have another Casino Royale. But that would be a cool thing to do.
I guess the alternative is they find someone who is a different acting style, so he's not doing the dark, gritty, and maybe bringing back some of the things we're missing. Maybe bring back a bit of the humour, maybe bring back a bit of the suaveness and a bit of the ladies' man Bond. And there is definitely a certain actor or possibly two out there who could pull that off. And I think keeping it that different sort of style to Daniel would be the only way to go. So give Daniel an amazing film, but bring in the next actor who can tick all these boxes and pull it off without losing face following Daniel's tenure, I think.
What do you think about potentially doing a period Bond? Do you think Bond of the movies should always be moving forward to stay contemporary and staying with the times in which he is? Or do you think there's potential for the next Bond after Daniel's done, let's take it back and do 50s Fleming Bond, or maybe even 60s Bond? What do you think?
I think movie Bond should stay contemporary. I think the Bond series has always been amazing at capturing the zeitgeist. You can really get a feel for what films were like at that time by watching a Bond film. With the sort of blaxploitation thing with Live and Let Die, to the dark and gritty stuff now, and the balls out silly action of the 90s. Bond's been great at doing that, and I think it would be a shame if that didn't continue. I think, obviously, like you said before, with how other franchises like Marvel or Star Wars or whatever, they've got so much going for them. They've got TV shows, they've got comics, they've got toys, they've got everything, which Bond just doesn't seem to have. I think period Bond or proper, really close adaptations of the novels could work as a series, as a Netflix series or something like that. But I personally love to see that, but I don't think the film should go that way.
Fair point. I'm in two minds. There's a part of me that's like, man, that would be cool to see like that swinging 60s Bond again. But then there's a part of me that would just feel like that might just be a bit too pastiche. Do you know what I mean? It might just... I think if you were going to do it, I feel like I would want to see that proper post-war 50s Fleming Bond. But then again, like if he's driving that big old tank Bentley with his goggles on, that's going to look fucking ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? There's just, I just don't know. Like you say, if I close my eyes and imagine what that would look like, I can't see it working as a feature film. Like, I think nail on the head there with a Netflix series. I feel like, you get somebody like Aidan Turner in,
Even an animated TV series, because then it would be cheaper and whatever. Batman, the animated series. I'm a huge Batman fan as well. Yeah. And that does it perfectly. It's still, grown-ups can still very much enjoy it. It's still very dark. And I think they could do that with Bond in a period way without having to break the bank on big name actors doing it live.
Yeah, definitely. Be interesting to see who gets the voiceover job for Bond.
Do you know who I would fancy for that job? I was just thinking about that. Who would you get to voice him? And if it wasn't somebody totally unknown, and I wouldn't want this dude to be a live action Bond,
right?
But voice wise, I feel like maybe Benedict Cumberbatch could pull it off. What do you think?
That's an interesting one. He's quite a distinctive voice. So would you be listening to it thinking, oh yeah, this is Benedict Cumberbatch, or would you be able to get past that and go, no, this is Bond? I don't know,
because he's got quite an old school vibe about him, doesn't he? He looks like he belongs to a bygone era. I could see him doing like proper old school Hoagie Carmichael lookalike animated Bond. I think so. Now I've said that, I'm not sure now you've said that.
I think they could stick with Toby Stevens, who's done it at the radio shows, and he's done it really well.
Yeah.
And, someone like him, he voices Bond well enough. Well, why not sit with him?
Yeah, good point.
Fair play. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, man. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us today. It's always good to put some faces to names when it comes to the JBR family. So thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for having me. I look forward to the next year of JBR.
Yeah, and many more to come, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, Stan. Been an absolute pleasure having you on, and we'll speak to you soon. Oh, actually, before you go, Stan, I think you need to get involved with some of the JBR meetups that we have in the UK sometimes. It would be cool.
I would love to. I'll keep an eye out for what's going on and get involved. I'm only up the road, so...
Brilliant. All right. We'll be in touch for the next one. All right.
Great. All right.
Beautiful.
Take care then.
Cheers. Everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Sounds like Stan has got himself a good woman there, like I said. When you get Bond music at your wedding and you get, the possibility of going to Jamaica for a honeymoon and all the rest of it, I think you can be safe in the knowledge that you've made the right decision. Would you agree with that? I
think so, yeah. I think basically there's got to be a bit of leeway when it comes to relationships if one of you is a obsessed Bond nut. And if it's not there, it's very slim chance that the relationship will continue.
Well, yeah, I must admit, if it was, listen, right, we're getting married, there's going to be none of this Bond stuff going on. If that was ever said to me, I'd be like, right, we need to have a serious talk about this. This just ain't happening, basically. If Bond isn't going to be a regular part of our lives in a major way, and you're not okay with that, then we have to call it a day. That would have to be the conversation. What do you think?
Definitely, man. Absolutely. But I think, in Stan's case, he's definitely done all right. Obviously, nobody does it better. Brilliant song. Lovely song. That'd be great for his wedding. And Jamaica, I mean, how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
Potential honeymoon destination.
Yeah, that absolutely. I want to. At some point, I will make it out to GoldenEye, and I want to sit at Fleming's desk. I want to take a typewriter with me, preferably a golden one, and I just want to hammer out some words on that desk, just to see if I can channel him. Maybe I'll write a masterpiece in an afternoon or something. I don't know, but yeah,
we've got to read that.
Yeah. Absolutely. But good stuff. Nice one, Stan. Good to chat to you, buddy. That's a name I've seen crop up on the social medias over the years, so it's good to
definitely
put a face to the name. So next up, Chris, I know you're going to be excited about this. We have a brother from Langley. We have Mr. Dennis James Hardin from upstate New York. Are you excited to talk to Dennis?
I am indeed. And Dennis is another one, actually. He gets involved on the social media, sends in the quotes and the trivia questions and stuff like that. So like always, it's really nice to kind of put a face to a name when we get to a chance to interview him. So yeah, definitely looking forward to speaking to Dennis.
Cool. Let's talk to Dennis right now. Okay, I would just like to welcome to the show, all the way from upstate New York, Mr. Dennis James Hardin. Welcome to JBR, Dennis.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Nice one. Well, here we are. This is the 5th anniversary Fancast episode. Did you get around to watching the video with your name being pulled out of the hat, or did someone just tell you that you're on the show?
Oh, no, I saw the video.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Like, wow.
Nice.
I was like on my way. I was about to go to work, and I thought I'd tune in, and there it was. And yeah, it made my day.
Nice. Excellent. Had a smile on your face during work all day. That can't be bad.
Yeah.
Nice one. So what we're going to do then, Dennis, is we've got our classic quick fire round of questions that we're going to go through just so our listeners can learn a little bit more about you in terms of, you know, how it started for you with Bond, you know, what sort of areas you really like and basically what got you into Bond fandom. So we're going to start with the first question, which is, Dennis James Harden, what is your favorite James Bond film?
Oh, that one actually. I've been thinking about that all. It's so tough to pick just one, but I'm gonna go with one of the first 4 Connerys. It has to be one of those. So
good, solid choice.
I'm gonna go with Thunderball. Actually,
Nice.
Thunderball, because that's one that I've always been fascinated by its history. Sean is like perfect top form. I mean, Goldfinger is real close. It's really one of those two. But by Thunderball, you got that nice Panavision widescreen. Also, when I was back in the days of VHS, I would look for all the different copies because that one in Fleming Foundation magazine, GoldenEye, had this great article on the different edits, the different versions of Thunderball, where some of the dialogue and music was a little bit different. I kind of wanted to see every single one. Yeah.
It'd be quite interesting actually to get the different versions, because there's even like you mentioned, there's a couple of lines that Connery says at different moments in the film, which are different lines for the same scene, which is so odd. But it'd be quite interesting to see those sort of matched up together, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you can tell about the one that got away.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a good impression,
good.
man. I'm impressed with that. That was excellent.
That's one of our listener quotes right there. That was fantastic.
I should have saved it.
Beautiful work, man.
Nice.
Good stuff. Excellent. Yeah, I think Thunderball is one of those. There's a magic to Thunderball, isn't there? I think whenever Bond's in the Caribbean somewhere, whether it's Bahamas or Jamaica or somewhere like that, there's something special about that. And I think, you know, there's something special and exotic about Thunderball in that location, all the scuba stuff, you know, being on those exotic islands and stuff, and the rather lovely bevy of Bond girls as well is pretty special in that film as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Great villain too with Largo.
Yeah, big
That's
time.
it. And also a bit underrated, I think, Largo, because he's a physical match for Bond, isn't he? You know, he gets involved, goes underwater. Yeah. Nice.
We've got Blofeld over there.
Yeah.
And he's often a bit overlooked, I think, Largo as a Bond villain. But yeah, but so what else is it about? Is there any sort of particular scene in Thunderball that really does it for you?
Oh, actually, the beach scene with the Domino, where he after they've been underwater and they've had their little bit of fun, and he reveals that her brother's dead. That right before Vargas shows up. I really like that interaction, how at one point he puts on his sunglasses and because he's kind of distancing himself a little bit from getting too emotionally involved, but he's still giving her the bad news after he's had some fun.
Well, this is it, because it's quite calculating from Bond, that scene, because if you think about it, he knows what he has to tell her. He's got the watch and the identification disc of her brother. He's seen her brother dead.
Yeah.
So he knows he's got to do it, but yet he's more than happy to have a shag underwater with her first. And then when they're coming out, he's sort of tasting her feet, isn't he, to pull the egg spines out and all of that sort of stuff. And it's quite light-hearted and quite good. And then suddenly it turns when he gives her the information. And that's a really good scene, because that one's not picked up too often. That's a great choice.
Yeah, and then also the little bit where they're dancing. In the it's a very romantic moment after the casino. Actually, that's another good. That whole casino section, as he's in the boat and he's going to the casino, you got the music and the little game with Largo, and that moment where they're dancing and he's getting to know her a little bit. That whole section is very That's very classic.
You are not like Largo.
I tell you what, between the two of you, you're kicking out some amazing performances tonight. I like that. That's a great domino, Chris. I like that very much. Good stuff.
Been practicing hard.
Good stuff. So, next question then, Dennis. What is your favorite Bond book?
Oh, that's easily Casino Royale. I remember when I was 13 and Tim was the newest guy. Living Daylights had been out there, a shooting license, and that one summer I decided to read all the Fleming books as much as I could get in one summer, and I read Casino Royale in a day.
Wow.
I read it like it must have only taken like 4 or 5 hours to get through the whole thing at the time for a kid, and I love it. It's low key. It's just real. I think the movie version actually kind of captures a lot of the feel and tone, even though it's a completely different time period, and different decade. Really.
Nice.
I think
Casino Royale comes up quite a lot, doesn't it? I mean, it's often either, if it's not their favorite, then it's definitely up there, and which is quite nice because if you think about the material, obviously it's a smaller book. There's less going on than some of the other ones, but the quality of Fleming shines straight away in terms of his writing, his style, the descriptions, and obviously the character of Bond as well. Is great in that book. So yeah, that's again another great choice. What is your opinion of the adaptation of the '67 version? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, you got to be in the mood for it. You got to be in the mood for it. It's kind of hard to get through all the way. I have to tell you, if I pop it in, I tend to watch it in little sections. It's hard to for me to sit through in one sitting all the way through. It's pretty. Actually, I like the Barry Nelson, the live TV version better.
Oh, I was going to say that. Yeah. So again, from seeing it as an American, and you're seeing obviously Jimmy Bond, card sends Jimmy Bond, and Clarence Leiter is sort of like the Brit. What do you think of that one then, the '54 version?
It kind of reminds me. The thing about the especially the early Fleming books, they kind of, when I was a kid, anytime I would go to the bookstore and want to pick up some of those novels, it would always be in like the murder mystery or like a pulp type section. It'd be right up there with Mickey Spillane, Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett. Fleming would be right in there. And so that the live TV kind of reminds me of that sort of film noir that you would get in a Mike Hammer movie or like a Philip Marlowe. But it's live TV, and you can see that Barry Nelson was nervous a little bit. But it's pretty cool. It's got that great torture scene. And then
Peter Lorre as well. I mean, what a villain he is.
And then unlike some James Bond movies that don't have the gun barrel at the beginning, you got that little that circular, it kind of looks like the gun barrel where you got the title, and so I think that counts almost.
And, I think so. And there's a couple of nice one-liners in there, isn't there? There's the one where the guy says to him, obviously someone tries to shoot him, and one guy says to him, aren't you the guy who was shot? And he's like, no, I'm the guy who was missed. And then there's a couple of sneaky little one-liners in there, which I quite like, actually. Yeah, good fun. So going to question 3, what is it? Where did it all start with you with Bond? What was your earliest memory that you can think of going back to Bond?
It's we saw Moonraker in the movie theaters when it came out, and I was actually just talking to my dad about it just yesterday, because The Spy Who Loved Me aired on cable at that time, and my dad was in college, and I remember us watching it. So I was really into Jaws. So I loved it 4 or 5 times, and then it came on ABC around that time. So I can't remember. Did we see Spy Who Loved Me first or Moonraker? So that's really vague. But one of the things I do have vivid recollections of is whenever ABC would air a Connery film. And my dad would say, this one has the other James Bond, Sean Connery. And as a kid, whenever there was a different actor playing a part, because I was really into Superman, that was huge, Christopher Reeve. And then the George Reeves TV series would be on every weekend. So I'd have like 2 to sort of compare. So when that happened with Bond, for me, I always thought that was like a very cool little thing to check out. And I remember...
it's funny, isn't it, with that stuff, like how a lot of people tell their stories when they discover Bond when they're a kid, and it's, say it was a Roger film they watched first, and then they go to the video shop and it's like, oh, here's another Bond film, and you pick it up and you're like, well, who's this guy? That's not James Bond. That's somebody else. It's such a funny thing because obviously nowadays with the internet, you know everything within a heartbeat. But like in those days, there's this whole little unraveling of discovery, and then you stumble across George one day and be like, hold on a minute, what's going on here? So it's funny, isn't it, when you're a kid in those days without the internet, that how things like that happen. Yeah, it's funny to hear Sean described as the other Bond.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember there was an airing. Octopussy was out, in the summer of '83. I remember school had just gotten out. Dr. No aired on like a weird night. It was like on a Thursday or Friday, and I sat and watched the whole thing, and I was hooked from that moment with the M scene where he takes off his jacket and he's got his shoulder holster. I thought that looked so cool. And then I said, Dad, we got to go see the new one right away, Octopussy. And I would start comparing the little things like Roger's shoulder holster to Sean's and the gun barrel pose and the music. And I was hooked from then on. I was like, I got to see them all now.
Man, talking about shoulder holsters, I went through a shoulder holster obsession when I was a kid, and I wanted one so badly. And I like England doesn't like, that's just not something you could get in England in those days. So it was just, I never ever got a shoulder holster. And to this, I would still love a shoulder holster if I could get one. I'd wear it all the time. I'd keep my phone in it or something. But man. There's something about the shoulder holster that really appealed to me as a kid, yeah.
So would you go with the PPK shoulder holster or like the brown leather one that Rog has in Live and Let Die in the promo material? What do you reckon?
I'd go brown leather, I reckon.
Do you? Yeah. What about you, Dennis? What do you think?
I'd probably want that blue, that what was it, like a white leather he had and a blue strap?
That's it, yeah. Oh, yeah. That looked nice.
I remember taking a blue necktie and some elastic and creating my own facsimile shoulder holster and that little toy gun, trying to find one to keep me.
That is superb. See, Tom, you missed the ingenuity of trying something like that.
I wasn't creative enough. Cool stuff. So next question then is, who is your favorite Bond actor?
Oh, well, I'm going to give it to Sean. It's actually really an even tie between him and Roger. They're hard to rank because I love them all. So I always say that Sean and Roger are like my number one, and then the others are second. That way, no one has to be last.
I like the way that you said they're second and not your number two.
Right. They're second. Or they're next. Yeah,
they're next. Yeah.
But I think about Sean and Roger, especially you got multiple films between them, but it's just a wide variety. Like you can watch Live and Let Die, and it feels completely fresh and new compared. Later on you watch Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only. They're all different. So Roger had a variety. Pretty much do anything. Same with Sean.
And out of the other actors, are you would you put all the rest of them on like an even keel?
Yeah, I would really, because it would all depend on mood. Sometimes I'm in a Craig fix and I want to see him run around on that crane or those rooftops in Quantum of Solace. And he's got a real coolness about him that he came through after all the press, the negativity about Bond.
I think there's a documentary that I saw about it, a Casino Royale one, where it went over the anti-blonde Bond and all this sort of stuff, and it got to the point where Dan was saying that it just cemented everyone to try and make the best Bond film they could, rather than sort of have it affect them in a negative way. They kind of turned it into a positive and were like, right, we're going to make the best bloody film we can. And it shows so much with Casino, doesn't it? Which is fantastic.
Yeah. They really, and also to me, even though it's completely different, it feels very much like a Bond movie, maybe because it's got the novel to fall back on, but it feels very, it kind of almost feels like Dr. No. You got the gun barrel that leads into the titles. It's in black and white. The gun barrel's in black and white. So there's a lot of little things that remind me of Dr. No, and it's also a bit low key. So of all the modern ones, that's definitely my favorite of modern.
Nice.
Who would have thought? I often think, who would have thought that you would knock out such an absolute masterpiece at that stage of the game? 20 odd movies into a series, you could be forgiven for thinking like by that stage of the game that all the best Bond films have already been made. You know what I mean? And it's like that far into a series, it's like, how do you not repeat yourself? How do you not sort of just churn out a different flavor of the same thing again and again and again? And then it's like that one came along. And I feel like maybe the fact that it was the negative press not only helped them in terms of when they were making it and their attitude to like, right, we've really got to pull out all the stops, but to come out in that sort of, with that sort of public feeling in the press, to come out with such a good movie could have only have helped it really in the public consciousness, you know?
And turned it around. Like, all the critics were just eating their words, weren't they? Like, everyone that was slating Bond beforehand, there was no critic that was sort of against Casino. It was that good a film that like fans and critics alike sort of universally praised, pretty much.
They really nailed it.
Yeah, completely. So on to the next question then, Dennis. Now, this one is always a fun one to ask. So you can have two answers here. The question is, who is your favorite Bond girl? And you can have one about character, the one that you'd like to marry. And you can also have one about the one that gets your blood going, the one that you'd, have a nice dirty weekend with.
Both the ideal.
There we go.
Actually, Domino, Claudine from Thunderball, it would be my number one favorite.
Goodness me, yes, absolutely. Domino is my favorite Bond girl for a long time. Yeah, mine do wobble from time to time. I do change my taste a little bit, but yeah, Domino was my number one for many a year actually.
Yeah, years ago when I was in college, I'd done drama for a long time, and I decided to take some real classes, the core classes to that everybody's supposed to do, which I wasn't into. But I was studying French, and my my grammar wasn't so great, so I had some French tutors. And so I came across, this was like in the early days of the internet, I came across a Bond fan site that had Claudine Auger's mailing address. So I wrote her a little letter in French saying along the lines, "You're my favorite Bond girl. You were great in Thunderball." It was really trite. But I had my French tutor look it over, and I said, "Can I please have your autograph?" So, and I really didn't think it would actually get to her. But so I photocopied from it must have been Stephen Rubin's James Bond Films book, a picture of her. I found another one too and sent it. And then about 3 weeks later, it came back with her signature on it. I'm like, wow.
Dude, that's an amazing story.
That is so cool. And you must still have it. Please say you still have it.
I've actually got it packed away. I'm going to put both of them in a frame. But I was like really surprised at that.
Whoa.
How cool is that? So how long ago was it that you sent off the picture and the letter and everything?
It was around the World Is Not Enough era. It was about 99, I think, 2000. Yeah. It's been almost 20 years.
Wow. That is so good. And Domino, she is like Claudine Auger. She's like the character of Domino, one that comes up quite a lot with this question. I think she definitely had like a real sort of sexual, sort of cheeky, playful quality to her, and the chemistry between her and Bond was so good. And it's also, there's that little bit of naughtiness because she's like the kept mistress of Largo. So there's that sort of side of things going on as well. And also some of the bikinis that she wears is pretty damn good as well, I'd have to say.
Yeah, she has some great moments, some great scenes. And I guess my second favorite, that's the hard thing, is picking the second favorite. Yeah. I'm going to go with somebody later on. I'm actually going to go with Kara, Mariam Dabo.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, because for one thing, she's a musician. Musicians are always cool. And and Living Daylights is one that when I was a kid, I saw in the theater a bunch of times, and really into that one. So
nice.
I'll go with Kara. Also, she's like she all of a sudden she starts kicking ass at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Instead of like screaming.
That's true. Yeah, she's not just sitting in the corner waiting for Bond to save her. She's piloting a plane, not very well. It must be said, but she's having a go.
I do enjoy the way that she uses the windscreen wipers to like hit that guy's face when he's on the Jeep. That's a good little moment. That one.
Nice to
and then Mariam Dabo wrote that really cool book, that Bond Girls Are Forever, and did that documentary. Mm-hmm. So get the impression she's really proud of that legacy.
Yeah,
it's cool. Nicely done. Cool stuff. So. Dennis, it's time to get musical. I want to know what your favourite theme song is. I want to know what your favourite Bond score is.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Let's see. I'm going to go with maybe for the favorite theme song. Wow, there's so many. Maybe Nobody Does It Better just for Sir Roger.
Nice.
It actually does. It went, especially now, it's very moving when you hear it. It almost makes you tear up to hear it. Think of Roger. But there's a lot of them that I love. Live and Let Die, Beautiful Kill, Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah.
I think Nobody Does It Better has such an extra level to it now. It's like ascended, and it's like we've often said it many times that that's now Roger's theme tune. It's not really a Bond song anymore. It's Roger's theme tune. And like I remember when it came out that he passed away, and we jumped on the podcast quickly just because it was like obviously horrible news, and just to talk about it. And then we put that song at the end of the podcast, and as soon as you hear that bling, ding, and ding, and it was like, oh man, like it was tough to listen to. It really was, yeah.
It's very moving,
and suits the film really well as well. I think that song, like it connects it well, and obviously the relationship between Bond and Triple X, I think that helps, and the fact as well that obviously this was Cubby going solo, put everything into The Spy Who Loved Me, and it was like, the character of Bond, nobody does it better. You know, this is going all out on it, and I think the song kind of reflected that as well. So yeah, really, really good choice. So, in terms of Bond locations, then, Dennis, where would you most like to visit that you haven't been, and which Bond location have you already visited that you found sort of the most fun or the most entertaining to visit?
Well, actually, I've been to New York City, and I was just a kid. I don't actually even really think we got to go to any of those actual spots.
Have you done the Voodoo Shop, the old coat Voodoo Shop?
We might have walked by it, but I was like 12, so I didn't really. It wasn't really something that I was on my mind at the time. But I'd really like I want to go to the UK and visit the UK, Pinewood, and just all those locations, where all the history happened. Dorchester, where George got his haircut.
Yeah.
The barber's still there.
You know what you want to do? You want to pencil in the week of Valentine's Day 2020. Come over for when the film comes out. That would be a good time to be in London to explore the Bond sites for sure.
Yeah, maybe I can get my girlfriend we can take a trip out there. She's been going to the UK quite a bit in the last couple of years, visiting Whitstable, where Peter Cushing lived. The great, the actor.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Cool stuff.
Maybe we can work that out sometime. And that would be our anniversary, Valentine's Day.
That'd be great. And so would you be honest? Would you be upfront and say, okay, this is our Halloween. We're going to go to London. Absolutely love it. Would you kind of say, right, there might be one or two little Bond locations I want to visit, or would you keep that secret until you got there? How does it work with you guys?
I'd probably. She likes Bond like I do. So it makes it a lot easier. She got me the Blu-rays for Christmas, and she was actually the one when Roger passed to be the one to call to tell me, because she knew it would be like a member of the family almost.
Yeah, big time.
She took with that, so she's totally into the Bond thing.
Nice. Sounds like you got yourself a good woman there, Dennis. I approve. Good stuff. She gets the JBR stamp of approval. Good. Now, next question then. What do you want to see from Bond 25 when Dennis James Hardin sits down to watch Bond 25 for the first time? What does he want to see?
Oh, well, let's see. Definitely. How about they do the gun barrel and they actually do it right for Craig? I want the audience to cheer. It's like, when if you remember GoldenEye, when the dots, even when the music was a little bit off, the instant Pierce starts walking, the audience cheered loud. And Daniel hasn't had that moment of the audience opening gun barrel cheer. And Spectre kind of had it, but I don't remember them being all, maybe because of the music or something, or maybe the way the image looked. But that's the first thing I want. But what I'm really, really hoping is that it's so good that it jumpstarts that Universal Annapurna, I guess whoever's got the distribution rights. I hope they start fast tracking it so we get them out. It'd be nice 2 years, but 3 years would be, so that we don't have that uncertainty between films, because sometimes you feel like it's starting to. We only had 2 films this decade, and we want more the next decade in the 2020s.
Yeah. Well, we only had 3 in the noughties. 2. That's 5 films in 2 decades.
20 years.
That's in 28. That is crazy, isn't it? When you think about it. So, everyone listening will be in the same mind as you. I think 2 years in this day and age is a push, but possibly possible. But I think 3 years that's a decent amount of time to get a really good script, everything sort of prepared and pre-production development and all that sort of stuff. When you start to hit 4 years and beyond, that is when it is a bit of a shame. And I know there's been, I guess, various things going on at the moment, but I think post Bond 25, there might be a change. Obviously, we're going to have a new Bond. There might be a few different things going on, but if we can get this, whoever does play Bond next, into almost like a 2 or 3 year sort of every 3 years, we know we're going to get a Bond film. I think every Bond fan out there would absolutely love that. Like a 2-3 years, every Bond film guaranteed. It's going to happen, because it is tough, isn't it? Sometimes being a Bond fan and not getting the goods when you want it. But hopefully that happens. Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope I hope it's going to be one that's one that you want to watch a lot. Especially 25. It's the 25th film. I want it to be one that I pop in like as much as I pop in Octopussy or Live and Let Die or Goldfinger. Ones that I want it to be one that you can watch like anytime. You don't have to be in the mood for it. You just pop it in and
there it is.
So in terms of storyline, what would you like to see? Would you want to see a bit of Blofeld? Obviously, there's that potential of Madeline Swan coming back. In terms of story and Craig's of send off, what sort of thing would you like to see?
Probably maybe a pretty good caper for the villain, some sort of thing that that Richard Maybaum would be proud of, some sort of main. I just like a lot of fans, I kind of want a straight mission, not too much personal angst for Bond. Really something straightforward. Actually, even if it's more of a simple plot, sometimes that can really work wonders. Yeah. Certain Bond films, like Live and Let Die, for example, has a really straightforward plot. Yet it's one that it's just a lot of fun to watch. You got those great set pieces. I kind of want them to look maybe at some of the earlier films for inspiration like that. That doesn't try to get, really great characters.
Yeah. No. I think we're pretty much on board with that, aren't we, Tom?
Absolutely, 100%. So have you got anybody in mind when Daniel hangs up his Walther after Bond 25? Who would you like to see pick up the PPK for Bond 26?
That is really tough right now. I'm kind of warming towards Cavill. There really hasn't been anybody I'm like, it's kind of like when you see him, you'll kind of know him when you see him. And nobody's really sold me just yet. Henry Cavill, I did like him a lot in Mission Impossible, and
that's the one that turned it around for me. I'd kind of thought because he was Superman, that was kind of off the table, and now obviously he's not Superman anymore, and he's still not that massive household name, is he? He's not like headlining his own films. It's like the stuff he does is like that character is a famous character that he plays, and it's like obviously he's like a second sort of level player in the Mission Impossible film, so it's not like he's a big star. Like people know him, but he's not too big for, like something like a Tom Hardy. He's kind of too big for Bond. Fassbender, too big for Bond. Like they're just not the sort of actors they would go for. Whereas he's still in that little pocket that he's not too big of a star for it yet. He's just in the right little pocket, I think.
And he's pretty dashing too. Seeing him in interviews, it seems like a really charming guy. And, still, it's it's going to be, Craig is going to be a tough act to follow. I think it's going to be.
This is it. Yeah. Particularly if this next film is an absolute belter and he goes out on a high, and like you said, it's one that you can watch anytime and everyone comes out of the cinema absolutely loving it. Whoever then steps into the shoes afterwards they're going to have a tough test to try and win over the fans. But obviously that's where the casting choice comes in, and I guess we'll see. But there we are.
All right, good stuff. Well, thank you for joining us, Dennis. It's been a lot of fun. I as soon as I heard your voice, I was like, I obviously knew you'd sent in numerous voicemail messages over the years and stuff. So it's good to put a face to the voice finally.
Oh, great! It's great to meet you guys.
Oh, likewise, Dennis. It's really good to have you on the show, and I really enjoy sort of finding out how Bond has influenced everyone, really, any sort of Bond fan. And it's been a good little journey, shall we say?
Yeah, and happy anniversary, by the way, too.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Yeah. Here's to the next 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice one.
Right.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for listening, man. Thanks for sending in your comments and your voicemail messages and all the stuff. Keep it up. I want a good Connery quote from you for the Guess the Quote round coming up, because now I've heard you do it, I know you can pull it off nicely. So I'll look forward to one of those.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. All
Brilliant.
right. Cheers,
all right,
Dennis.
nice one.
Take care, buddy.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, it must be said, Chris, it sounds like Dennis has got himself a good woman as well. He's got a lady who thoroughly enjoys a bit of Bond as well. So that's a beautiful thing. I predict good things for their relationship.
I do, yeah. It comes to James Bond wedding counselling. It's like marriage counselling.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that sounds good. And it's pretty cool what you mentioned about the Spy Who Loved Me novel, like the location of it being just not far from him, because that sometimes gets overlooked in our world in terms of, obviously, the film locations are so obvious in a way, but not easy to find sometimes, but obvious. Whereas the novel locations, I know quite a few people kind of follow the Bond sort of eatery experience and try and do the hotels where he visits, the restaurants where he dines and goes for martinis, and that's quite a popular thing, which is obviously be a really good experience. But in terms of sort of actual other locations within the novels, I think that's an interesting area to explore. So absolutely, Dennis is going to take a little trip up there and see what he can find.
Yeah, completely good stuff. Absolutely, yeah. I think I've been inspired to revisit many books. Obviously, like Matt mentioned last week about the Nobody Lives Forever and all that kind of stuff. And do you know what? It's been so long since I've read the Spy Who Loved Me book. I need to revisit that as well. I know, obviously, it was a bit of an experiment and very different, but still, it's Fleming. It's still Bond. Yeah. And that's one of the books actually that I really can't remember much of at all. So that's going to be a nice one to revisit at some stage. I think I've got to do Nobody Lives Forever first. I'm primed to read that. I'm pumped to reread that.
I mean, I remember what we were talking about when we interviewed about the storyline about all these assassins going after Bond. Mate, that is a storyline waiting to happen.
In it, yeah.
I mean,
it really is.
I guess
and a great title as well, man. That works. I can see that on the shelf with all the other Blu-rays, I can see it.
Obviously, we've had Diamonds Are Forever before, but I still think that would be okay. Obviously, we mentioned Never Dream of Dying before. Brilliant title as well. But I think Nobody Lives Forever it's got a classic sounding Bond title name. Yeah. And I think the idea is I don't think you could do it as a first Bond film for a first Bond actor, because he needs to be in the role. Maybe his third film, maybe his Goldfinger, his Skyfall, whatever, when he's a bit more established and you know the character well, and then suddenly, boom, all these assassins are after him.
When you think about it, that is kind of what From Russia with Love is, isn't it? People always said that Quantum of Solace was the first ever direct sequel to a Bond film. That's not true. From Russia with Love was, because the whole idea of getting Bond was in revenge for him killing Dr. No. So it is directly related to the first film. So, I mean, that would be good. You have your first Bond come along and, you get used to the new dude, hopefully you like him, and then movie number 2 is Nobody Lives Forever. You know, I feel like it would work as either like a second or third movie, like you said,
or second or third,
or the last movie.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like
basically
you could do
not the first movie,
like for 125. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we'll see.
There we go. All right, cool. And then it is time, Chris, now for our final interview of the 5th anniversary extravaganza, which is with Mr. Gary Bootle. Now, we bumped into Gary, didn't we? We first met him at the Casino Royale live performance thing with David Arnold at the Albert Hall. Him and Mrs. Bootle came along, and we had a good old time, didn't we?
We certainly did. We had a good old chat afterwards, had a few drinks and a bit of a chinwag, which was always good, and representing Station L Lancashire. So
absolutely.
That's a good one.
So let's have a chat to Gary. So we'd like to welcome our 6th and final guest for the 5th anniversary JBR anniversary extravaganza, Mr. Gary Bootle. How's it going, Gary?
It's going well, mate. Yeah, thanks, lads, for having me on the show. Been looking forward to this for a few years.
Well, I have to say this is the first time we've had reputation from Station L Lancashire, so that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's grim up north.
Good stuff. So we're gonna crack on with the old quickfire questions. Obviously, we crossed paths before, didn't we? We met at, was it the Casino Royale live performance thing? I think that's when we first met you, wasn't it?
That was, back September last year, was it?
Yeah.
October, September last year.
Yeah, absolutely. That was it.
Right. And we stayed on and had a nice little chat afterwards, didn't we?
We did, yeah, a few beers. It was a bit rough the morning after.
For any long-term JBR listeners, if you remember, we had a little sound clip of somebody singing underneath the mango tree drunkenly at Gone Midnight that night. That was Mrs. Bootle that we had on the show. So that was a good night all around. All right, so do you want to kick off the quickfire questions then, Chris?
I will indeed. So, are you ready, Gary?
I am.
Agent Bootle, question 1. What is your favourite James Bond film?
See, this is a hard question, lads. It's a hard question because I'm very fluid. Very modern term, that, isn't it? I'm fluid. So I swing left to right with these things. So I was thinking long and hard about this question. I thought, it's got to be a Roger film. It's got to be a Roger film. But it's probably not at the moment. It's probably Casino Royale. Because I just think it's absolutely awesome. From the moment it starts right until the end credits, it is top end. Yeah, it's a good film. It
is a beauty. What do you like about that in particular?
Well, think about it. I can't fault it. You know, we did the 90-second review for Tomorrow Never Dies the other day, and everyone's saying, with Casino Royale, I think it's absolutely perfect. It's just flows. The stories are very Fleming-esque. The relationship with Vesper, the cinematography, the music's banging. I just think it's great all the way through. I was thinking, what would I criticise it for? And there's probably only 2 things, and one's probably a recommendation to make it better, and one will be a slight criticism. And this is how good the film is. The only thing I can criticise it for is the keypad that he puts Vesper in on. Looks a bit now.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Right.
That's how minor. Yeah, it looks a little bit cheap. So that's it. And then the way I'd make it better, and Tommy always says this, is the way they introduce Daniel as Bond. They should have just kept his face hidden until they did the shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that would just take that. But other than that, I mean, they are minor things. I just think the film's great. I think it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think that pre-title sequence, I think you could have achieved that quite well. Like obviously you've got the flashbacks of the bathroom fight, and you could have shot that because you barely see his face anyway. Really, it's like you could shoot it in such a way where you never really see it properly. Yeah. And then when he's in Dryden's office, it will be shots over the shoulder. You just see his hand on the armchair and all that kind of stuff. You know, kind of like they do with Dr. No at the casino table, you know, that kind of thing. And then bang, gun goes off. He stands up, yes, considerably. And then you see the gun barrel, bang, then you're into the song. Yeah, man, I would have loved that. But so here's a question then. I'm in full agreement, actually. I think it's a aside from a minor tiny thing like that, I would have preferred it had they done it, but I don't dislike what they actually did, so it's not a criticism by any means.
Because it was a much longer sequence, wasn't it? I think on the extras, all of it ran matching well, so I think they did well to bring it down, because I think that would have slowed it down.
Yeah, absolutely. There was that whole cricket game and stuff that was the actual beginning, wasn't it? But it's a pretty much flawless film, that. But one question that does come up is, what about those kind of key scenes from the Casino book that you didn't get in the film? So like the death of Vesper, for example. So obviously in the book, it's a very different death. And I remember being at a panel with Purvis and Wade once who said that was their original version, was the one from the book with her being dead in the bath. And it was a Paul Haggis thing that switched out for the action sequence with the sinking house and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think about that? Would you have rather seen the pure blood Fleming version of that, or do you think on the big screen it needed that action set piece to finish it?
I'm probably like you guys, a bit of Fleming's always a good thing, and we're into Bond, so we like that story, that character. But it's a film that needs to be commercially successful, so you need to put it through the sinking house piece at the end. It does feel like it's put on there to carry the film into a dramatic conclusion. But you talk about doing something on Netflix or something like that, high quality retro remake of the novels. So I think you could go for something like that. But I think they did well in it. You had to rewrite it for the modern era, change some of the characters, change some of the kind of trends and the base story. But I just think it's great. So I'd have gone with how it was. Yeah,
I agree with you as well, Gary. And because if you think about if they hadn't gone for the whole sinking house, that whole scene with Vesper in the lift and Bond trying to get in and desperately trying to get in, and just that moment where she this is it, she sucks in that water and there's that sort of horrifying look to her, and that is haunting as anything, and I wouldn't swap that for anything. Basically, I think that is such a good, strong, powerful moment, and ultimately it's just the effect it has on Bond. When he sort of grabs her out and he's trying to resuscitate her and he doesn't, and it's that moment where he realizes that's it, and you see him just sitting there, sort of almost, he's shivering, and that moment is just so good. And I think if we missed that, we'd be missing a major piece from that film.
Yeah, I mean, the film absolutely shapes the character of Bond. So you've been watching this guy now for 40, 50 years, 50 odd years, isn't it? Going through there, and the Fleming-esque character of Bond, that film absolutely shapes it. You see when he comes out the back end of it, why he's the man he is, why he's the character he is. And that's been lacking all the way through. But to reboot the franchise, it almost feels like the last four films sit on their own, and it's very much, you get these chunks in Bondism of going through there. And I was listening to your podcast the other week where I think it was a listener review, and you were talking about after Bond 25, what happened with the franchise, which way they're going. I think there's going to be a really big problem because it's a golden age of Bondism that we've got at the moment, and where it goes next. So I think, there may be a direction of travel which says they may sell it, and then we get something completely different, because because at the end of the day, it's a family business, isn't it? It Cubby and Broccoli, so it's Cubby and Barbara, and it's a second generation. And lots of family businesses, as they go into that third generation, you see the flex and change. So who knows what's out there for us in the future?
Yeah, this is it. I think there's been a lot of talk about that, hasn't there, Tom, in terms of what the change that might happen. And obviously we've seen Disney buying up loads of things and various other studios getting involved, and it's a real catch-22 as to whether people want that, because obviously Eon has been there since day dot, and that's what we've known. Mrs.
Bootle, there she is.
Oh, hello.
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 Hello, Mrs. Bootle.
I'm well, how are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Not too bad.
Good.
How you doing?
I'm live on air here, Joanne. Come on. You're breaking me with it. I've got a rhythm kid. Come on.
Nice.
Sorry.
So yeah, Gary, if you had to pick, that's all right. If you had to pick one scene from Casino, a standout scene, there are so many to choose from. But if you had to pick one, what would you go for?
Oh, it's a great question. It's got to be the end sequence with Mr. White.
In it. Oh my goodness.
It's I am a straight man, and but that gives me a boner when I see Daniel there. That is absolutely brilliant.
You sound like me, man. Whenever I see Pierce in his naval uniform, I ask myself some serious questions, and that scene with Daniel at the end makes me ask the same questions. Absolutely.
It's absolutely the shot from when they come across Como with the the aerial shot going in there, and then the jag pulling in there, and the gravel. It all builds up into that position, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then he comes through. Well, into the leg, and the music starts then, doesn't it, and builds.
Yeah.
That's the bit. It's those magical 3 notes, isn't it? Yeah. It just, as it builds up and you see his foot appear on the steps as he walks up. Oh, God.
And again, I'm getting tingles now, and we're just talking about it. We're not even watching it. It's that powerful.
Yeah.
If they'd have just made that sequence and put it on loop for 2 hours, I'd have still gone to the cinema to watch it.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
It's absolutely brilliant.
It's like we were saying in Tomorrow Never Dies recently, with the amount that David Arnold uses the Bond theme in that. You're back to your old classic Bond score with that one, where Bond's just walking down the street and you get the Bond theme playing, you know. And I need that in my Bond films. I miss it when it's not there. And I could just watch Bond walk down the street with those 3 notes just cruising away in the background for 2 hours, and I wouldn't get bored of it. I would just love that, you know.
I'm the same. A score with lots of Bond themes woven around the title track in that kind of, it's absolutely right. Brilliant, you know. It's I think Octopussy does quite well for a lot of Bond theme coming in there, you know, where they're on top of the train and then they're into tuk-tuk and things, and you just get it coming in, and it makes you feel like how can I describe it? You guys get it. It's in your DNA. There's something deep inside, isn't it? I can't describe how it actually ignites. So you think, oh, yeah, you know. And But that arrangement at the end of Casino Royale is, I think, possibly the best arrangement of the Bond theme. The orchestration. You get the tom-toms from like the early school, you know, early doors, like the Dr. No type style in there, and it's used on the. Is it used on the end of all the Daniel films?
I think so. It's a very that. It goes to the Bond theme every time, doesn't it? If I remember correctly, and I think it is. It's either that version or a very, very close one.
Yeah.
I imagine Thomas Newman uses his own version, but they all sound pretty similar, don't they, when you think about the end titles? All right, so question number 2 then is, what is your favourite Bond book?
Well, I've got to admit, I've not read all the books.
Gary Bootle.
But I have. I've listened to them on audiobook.
Oh, that's
so
all right. Yeah, that's
through all of it, but I've not read them all because I'm a thick northerner, you know, and books and education and stuff hasn't really come up here, you know. So I've got them on download iTunes and on CD and what have you. So I think, you know, going through that, I would say On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think that's a good book. David Tennant has just done like an audio recording of it. Nice. So I listened to that over the summer. So, I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And it links very closely to the film, isn't it? The film's very Fleming book driven. Yeah. And I like a bit of that, you know, as you see it come through.
Yeah, there's always, when it comes to the films, when there's Fleming material in there, it raises the game, doesn't it? When you think of all the best films, typically they're all Fleming heavy, and that's one of the things poor old Pierce missed out on, is that he's the only one that literally got 0 Fleming stuff in his 4 movies.
So here's an interesting question, Gary. So when you're listening to the audiobook of, say, Majesties or any of the others, if there's a scene that's similar to the film, are you picturing that filmic scene as it's being read, or are you picturing your own version of it separate to the film?
That's a good question. I kind of picture my own version of it as if it truly happened when Fleming was writing it, and then since they've made a film of it, if that makes sense. So you see like a classic war film, and you see how it is, and then you see black and white photographs of what it was like. So I try and imagine it, because he describes it more like in the 1950s content. So in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he describes in detail about taking the Swiss Air flight to Geneva, the type of aircraft. So when I'm listening to it, I'll Google that aircraft type, or I'll Google the car they're driving or the location. I'll look at the retro piece of it, so you get that kind of old school 1950s turn of the 60s type.
Yeah,
you know what? I wonder if there's scope for having something like that, in terms of if you could get an audiobook, but that is sort of has images that come along on the bottom of the screen to match up with what you're describing. So perhaps you'd have a scenery of the location that's being read, or the car or the model. So you're kind of listening to it, but you can also sort of go along with pictures that are being referenced in the story. I don't know, would that work, or is that a bit too out there?
I think that's a great idea. We'll go 50-50 on that. We'll take it to the Dragons. I want £50,000 or 20% of my business, which is visual audio books. Visual audio books. Might work, but
I like that.
All right, let's do it. Cool. Okay, so on to question 3 then. Now, this, for some people, it's really clear, and for others, not so much. But do you have an earliest memory of Bond? Like, where did it all start? Is there one thing that sparked it off back in the day?
Yeah, it was. I did it. I just before you guys dialed on, I actually on Wikipedia to find the date. It was the 28th of March, 1982.
Wow. Do you know what? That was literally 1 week before I was born.
1 week before you were born.
Yeah.
Well, I went on a camp with the Cub Scouts. So it was the first night I'd slept away from home without my mum and dad. So I'd be 10 then, 10 years old. And on the coach back, we went up to the Lake District in England, in the northwest. And coming back, there's a bit of chitter chatter with all the other guys all the other lads on the coach about there's a film on tonight. It's going to be a really good film. And it was on ITV. I think it must have been a Sunday night, and it was The Spy Who Loved Me. So I had seen parts of You Only Live Twice, but I wouldn't have been 7, 8, I don't know when that was on TV. So retrospectively, but I'd never connected that there was more than one James Bond film. So I got home, got in front of the TV, and well, we all know what happens. As soon as he skied off that cliff, the Bond 77 off the cliff, that was me and what I'm looking at 40 years later, 30 odd years later. Absolutely took me at that point. So then I've just been up into the loft because so I watched The Spy Who Loved Me, and there was a suggestion when I went to school that there was other films in this series. I had no knowledge of it. And around the same time, came on TV like a TV advert for a compilation album, James Bond Greatest Hits. So I absolutely begged my mum to go and buy this album, and I still have it now. So I don't know if you. This isn't very good. But that's the original copy. So when I got that, and written on the back is all the Bond films up to that time. So this goes up to For Your Eyes Only. It was absolutely. So this is a mission then that I've got to go and see all these films, and we're in that golden age. And VCRs weren't that common in the UK back then. So they were absolutely like gold dust. It was Christmas, it was an Easter, it was a bank holiday weekend. And to slowly watch all these films, it was a magical period in my life. And to go through that. And I remember looking at that and thinking, oh, this side must be all the Sean Connery films. Yeah. And this side must be all the Roger Moore films. No knowledge that there'd been another dude in between. Well, there was the other fellow, wasn't there?
Yeah.
There was a dude in between. And to slowly discover all that in the days pre-internet, when that was everything I had about James Bond, that was my entire knowledge.
How crazy.
So how many times did you end up listening to it then, Gary?
Seriously, I mean, I know there's a groove in that, but I nearly wore it out kind of thing. That was constantly going around. I had a pallet pool called Christian, and he was a bit of a Bond fan. So he came down and we recorded it onto a little C90 cassette so he could take it home kind of thing. That was that early days of pirating and the likes. But that was on constantly, and that's that. The Underneath the Mango Tree, my deep knowledge of that song, that's actually on this, the Three Blind Mice and Underneath the Mango Tree is on the LP. Because I think back then, there'd be 12 films, so they had to pad the greatest hits out, like the top, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that's the earliest memory, yeah.
That's incredible. I think that's one of the things, this has come up a couple of times in the previous listener interviews we've done, is that in that period when there was just so much for you to discover, and it's almost like that piece of vinyl there is like a trail of breadcrumbs that led you to the other films. And it was like you'd watched Spy Love Me, you loved it, and you had no comprehension of there being any other Bond films whatsoever. All of a sudden, hold on, what's this? The Greatest Hits James Bond? What's all these other film titles? Oh, there must be some more films. And then you go out, and like you say, VHS wasn't that common in those days. So it's literally like a treasure hunt to discover. And it was like I'm sure you remember it, like when you did stumble across a tape of whatever film or something, you're like, oh shit, I found one, I've got to run home and watch it. And that feeling of excitement, is it like when you'd collect vinyls or CDs back in the day or whatever? It's like you can't listen to that unless you go to the shop and you physically find that thing. Whereas nowadays, it's like everything, touch of a button, there it is. And there's a magic that gets lost in that. There really is.
Absolutely. You come on to another story there that So I saw The Spy Who Loved Me, 82, overnight, massive Bond fan. And, you know, I go to flea markets or second-hand type markets, you know, for people maybe not in the UK. And there was a big one in Manchester. It was called the Corn Exchange. It's quite near Victoria Station. If people have been there, it was badly damaged when there was a bomb there in '96, and now it's quite a hipster, full of restaurants and bars type thing. But that back then it was a little bit run down, and it was all second-hand gear. So I used to go through, you know, where they had LPs and start looking for other James Bond LPs and start looking at it. And this was the first one that I spotted, and I paid £2, which was a lot of pocket money back then.
Yeah,
£2 British, and it's on. This is an original 1969 copy with the gatefold sleeve.
Are you kidding me?
Boy.
Hey? That is beautiful.
That is crazy.
Mate.
£2.
£2.
Listen, mate, I'll give you a £5 for it. You've more than doubled your money. Can't say fairer than that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so going from this to the first full soundtrack. What a magical soundtrack to pick up.
Mate. That's still in amazing condition as well. You've done well there, mate. Yeah.
Almost in amazing condition, because I'm a little bit anal about things like this. But, yeah, a bit of over and out and all that, bit of Steve Chase. Hey. Very happy listening to this.
That is amazing.
Back in the day.
That is a beauty.
Now, speaking of second-hand or car boot sales, second-hand stores and stuff like that, I think it was last year you ended up visiting a car boot sale and happened to find a piece of iconic Bond memorabilia. Can you just explain to us? In fact, do you have it? Is it in the room you're in now? Or?
No, that's in the loft at the moment, because I'm just building a bit of a man pad, and it's going to go in there as a display. But yeah, I took my son down to a railway museum in Crewe. And it just happened on the weekend we were there. There was like a militaria type show, you know, people selling things. So it was really unusual to find it, because it was all tin hats and, you know, medals and uniforms and things. And we hadn't gone for that. It was just happening when I was there. So I walked around and I saw this from about 200 foot away, and it was an illuminated sign with the Albert R. Broccoli 007 stage. And it's about 4 foot by 2 foot. So it's quite a big thing, which would hang down. It's an internal sign which is illuminated with fluorescent lights. So I saw this from a distance, and it was literally, you know, that explosion of and I'm thinking, nobody else here recognises what that is and how important it is. So I went up and did a deal with the chap, and it wasn't a lot of money really for what it was. It's £100 or something like that. I think I gave him. And he told me that it was taken out of the 007 stage when it burnt down last. So that would put it around. Was it around Casino?
Kill.
No, it's the second time it burnt down. Because when I opened it up as an engineer, a bit geeky, and looked inside it, the wiring colours and the manufacturing dates on the items on the inside date it to about 84.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's a second iteration of the Bond 007 stage, and then when it went for the second time, they've lifted these things out, and it's ended up here.
Gary Bootle is his own little Q branch over there, dating the wires back to 1984. Good God.
I love that, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, the colour scheme of wire and neutral and things, you can date things that way. But so it was what a result. So I took it, and so I had to send Joanne off with Billy, you know, go and get a bacon sandwich and a cup of tea. I did the deal, and I'm walking back with this thing 4 foot. Stuff in the back of
the funny thing is,
I've accidentally bought.
I remember when you first put the photo up of it, and we couldn't quite get to scale what it was. It looked like it might have been maybe a foot long maximum, the way that we saw the photo. And then you sent a picture of it illuminated in your house with you sitting in front of it, and it's massive. It's this huge 007 sign, but it looks so good, man. So jealous.
I'm scouring the internet, because what I'd love to find is a photograph, you know, behind the scenes photograph on a film with like Roger in it, where one of these signs is in the background. So put it in there, because that would be really nice to connect. But I can't find anything where they've really got the things with the sets, but it's almost like between the set and the fabric of the building. It's that kind of area.
Right, yeah.
And, you don't see that much of it.
Well,
but yeah, so it's going to go in the garage.
Let's throw that out to the listeners. If anybody stumbles across a picture from that era with the sign in, let us know, and we'll pass it on. But that's amazing, dude. That's
he said there was 10 or so of them. So there's others knocking around, because they were over each of the kind of like the personnel exits to that. So I don't think it's the one sign. I think there might be 10 or so.
Gotcha.
That's all right. That's still pretty amazing. What a coincidence as well.
Did he tell you the story of how he came by it? Like, how did he end up with it?
Yeah, he was. There's a charity in the UK called Help for Heroes, which make money for injured servicemen and the like. So he was actually selling things on behalf of that, and he said he was down near Pinewood. He couldn't connect it with Pinewood. He didn't have. He just said the studios. He didn't know the background to the Bond story. I think it was Swindon or somewhere like that, and he was actually in a reclamation yard where people were, like, demolishing building and taking things through, and he picked up 8 of these things. So he said he slowly sold them, and that was the last one that he had left.
Wow.
So there are.
All right, cool.
Jeez.
Interesting stuff. Next question.
It's the way he explained it made it sound authentic, because he didn't quite know the story, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of nice, because otherwise the price might have been like quadruple what it was, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think he understood how many Bond keys are out there and what people have paid for that kind of thing. He was, but he'd not seen The Spy Who Loved Me in '82, so he'd not got the.
Equally, we have to get a photo of your man cave once it's all up and running with all the Bond stuff in it. That'd be awesome.
There we go. Nice. Next question then: who is your favourite Bond actor?
Right. I'm really struggling to answer your questions directly, so I've got 2 answers. My favourite actor to play Bond is Daniel Craig, but my favourite person who's played Bond is Roger Moore. So it's slightly different. So I've got to say Daniel is a better actor to Roger, because Roger, to me, was playing Roger Moore as James Bond kind of thing, where Daniel Craig's playing the character. So if you made me choose between the two, it'd obviously be Roger Moore, because I think he is, he's my hero kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Roger, I do like a bit of Daniel in the modern era.
Nicely done.
Well, I'm just looking behind you there. There's a very Roger Moore-esque Union Jack cushion, and also a lovely poster of For Your Eyes Only above it there.
Yeah, well, that another little story, because I kind of like what do you call it, where you're like a hoarder, where you keep everything which comes through. So that framed picture there is actually the a front of house souvenir program from For Your Eyes Only that I got when it was shown. It came through on a rerun type thing in the cinema where I was brought up as a kid. So I bought that, and on there it's £1. That's another big slice of pocket money, isn't it? To pick that. So when would it be? 2017, I think. 2017. Was it 16? On his last tour of the UK, an audience with Roger Moore, I picked up tickets to go and meet him at Southport. So we did the bit where we did the meet and greet beforehand. So we were waiting in the foyer, and there was a few people there with like film posters and things from The Saint, and I've got this tucked to one side and with Joanne, and this like security guy came out and said, "Sir Roger will not sign anything; he'll just sign the program," because you see these things going for a lot of money, don't you? You could pay for your tickets on the strength of him signing it. So we went into the room, and I think I was second up and went and had a chat with him. So I pulled this thing out, and this dude came up again and said, no, he won't sign anything. So I told him the story of The Spy Who Loved Me, wanting to be like Roger Moore when I was a kid. I bought this originally, and he just said, I'll get in a lot of trouble for doing this, so he signed it. So that's signed by Roger.
That is so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and he didn't actually. I asked him the name because but he didn't put to Gary on it. He just signed it, Roger. And I know there's been a debate on your podcast about would you have like a poster signed to you, or it'll be worth more with the name on it.
Yeah,
I wanted it personalised, kind of thing. Yeah, I think he was just like signing through there because that will never leave the Bootle family. You know, that bequeathed in my will to my heirs and successors.
That is my firm belief as well. So I managed to pick up an original Live and Let Die poster, and I went to collect it from the track. I got it off, I think it was eBay. I got it from years ago, and I met this dude in a hotel lobby to pick it up and do the exchange. And once I had it in my hand, I was like, and they were doing a signing with Bond stars, so you could send anything off and he would sign it. So I said to him, I'm going to get Roger to sign this for me, like next week or whatever. And he went, no, don't do that, because if it gets signed, then it's devalued, kind of thing, because it's not in its original thing. And I'm like, listen, mate, I could not care less about the monetary value of this poster. This thing is going to be signed. It's going to be to Tom. It's going on my wall. And literally, you can pry it out of my cold, dead hands before you could, like, there isn't a figure on the planet that would make me part with that poster. So I'm 100% behind it, man. Get it signed, keep it, don't ever give it away, no matter what anybody offers you for it.
Yeah, so I got it framed, and then obviously, sadly, that was his last tour, wasn't it? It was 6 months later that unfortunately passed away. So it's. It's sad, but I was really pleased I eventually got to meet him. Yeah. And people say, don't meet your heroes. And they're absolutely wrong with Sir Roger. He was everything that you saw on the screen. What a thorough bloke. He's, was he 89 when he passed away? He was So my partner, Joanne, was there with me, so she went up to meet him, and he stood up, shook her hand, pulled a chair out for her, sat her down. An absolute gentleman. What a nice bloke. Yeah, absolutely.
You think the world would be a better place if there were more like that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Nobody does it better.
Okay, well, there we go. That's it. So moving on to the next question then, Gary. Now, this one is always a fun one. We're going to ask you, who is your favourite Bond girl? And as always, you can have two choices here. One based on strength of character, and one who gets you a little bit wooden in the morning, a little bit.
Right, okay. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because literally there have been so many, and there's not really a bad one amongst them, is the kind of thing, when you... So I would probably say for the one that is the strength of character, I like a bit of Vesper, a bit of Eva Green.
Absolutely.
Because everyone seems to say Tracy for this, but I think Vesper, if you think of the character, was part of the formation of that character, isn't it? And from a film point of view, for Casino to come along, so close to the current part of the franchise, most non-Bond fans wouldn't really know about that character. It sits in a book from the 1950s. So I would say probably Vesper, and Eva Green isn't three bad either, is she? She's,
absolutely. Goodness me.
Yeah. So, I think, where else would I go with that? It's a good question. I do like a bit of Fiona from Thunderbolts, and that's a personal favourite of yours, Tom.
Yeah, it's Chris's favourite.
Mine,
Chris,
sorry. I'm a big fan of Fiona,
so I'm probably going with Monica I can't say it now.
Monica Lewinsky.
That's the dude. Yeah, when Clinton was Bond. Yes.
Very nice. Absolutely. Good stuff. Good choices. Fiona's very popular amongst the gentlemen, isn't she?
Yeah, there's something about her, isn't there? Yeah. A couple of things, but
exactly. Monica's a nice one though, because obviously it's so recent and not many people have said her, but I mean, she was great in Spectre, but equally it would have been great to have seen her obviously when she was up for the role of Paris. I think that would have been really nice just to have seen her interpretation in Tomorrow Never Dies if it had gone ahead. Obviously it didn't, but
she was, am I right in saying she I don't know, I'm having a brain fart, to use your expression, Tom. She's the oldest Bond girl, isn't she? She was older than Honor Blackman.
Yes, aside from Judi Dench, if you count her, but Monica Bellucci's definitely the oldest. Girl.
I mean, from my point of view, talk about connection and chemistry between the actor, and I think that would look to really that there was a chemistry there, kind of thing, age appropriate, for with Daniel and the like. So I think that works. Some of the other Bond girls, especially in the later Roger era, there was a good old difference in age there, wasn't?
Certainly was.
Really that believable when you You know, you looked. I think the biggest age difference was that In For Your Eyes Only. It was 20 odd years, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a big one there. Yeah. And yeah, crazy.
Look at old Roger. Hey?
Yeah, well,
go on, my son.
Yeah. If Joe was in the room and we asked Joe who is Gary's favourite Bond girl, would she have known that, or would she have taken a stab at the dark at something else?
No, I think she'd probably know that because I'm also particularly fond of Gemma Arterton. Oh. So I think she'd have probably gone for Gemma. They're all modern ones, aren't they? Fairly recent ones. I'm going through. Yeah, we went to watch the show in London, Made in Dagenham, and she was a lead. It was David Arnold had written the music for it, and she was a lead character in there. And she's a handsome young lady, to say the least. Yeah.
Lovely. Excellent.
Nicely done. Good stuff. Next question, then. Let's get musical, Gary. What is your favourite theme song and score?
Right. So, an absolute cannon of top belters. I mean, we watched Cue the Music last week, didn't we, down at High Wycombe? But I know this one, I can give you a definitive answer. It's Chris Cornell, You Know My Name.
Oh,
absolutely banging. And it's not from the classic Barry era of music, but when that, like the film, when it came through, and when the title sequence absolutely matches the film. I like a bit of rock music anyway, so I tend to like the faster driven rock type ones. And the theme is woven throughout the score.
Yeah.
You know, it comes through. So that was, and it was a little bit, I think, left field to use Chris Cornell in that, because he's not as famous as, you know, he's not, at the time, he wasn't like a top, you know, commercially successful recording artist at that time.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, Arnold picked him because of his talent and the fit to the song. So I couldn't tell you, but I don't think it did much in the charts, did it? The You Know My Name. I don't know where it got to in the chart. It wasn't a Skyfall, wasn't it? Kind of thing. It wasn't doing.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think when you have a new Bond actor come in and it's their first film, I think that's the most like fertile ground to go all out with the quality, because it's a bit easy to be like, okay, who's the top selling artist of the day? All right, we'll get them to do it. That's a guaranteed top 10 or a guaranteed number one if it's someone like Adele, you know, and that's the kind of easy option. But what they did with that dude and that song is they went 100% for absolute quality. It didn't matter that it wasn't going to hit number one. That in the with how music is these days, or back then I should say, 2006, that song was never going to be a number one hit single or even a top 10 really. But it was just an absolute 100% top quality tune with full respect paid to the film and what it was. It wasn't just trotted out, and it wasn't just made to sound a bit like Bond. It was the perfect track. I remember when I first heard that, when they first played it on the radio, and I went, oh God, I don't know about this. This is like, I don't know, it's all a bit Foo Fighters. Like, I'm not sure I want that for my Bond music. But then the more I listened to it, it grew on me very, very quickly. It was like within 10 listens, I'm like, hold on a minute. This is much like the film, actually. It was like, hold on a minute. This is actually fucking brilliant when you go deep into those lyrics and stuff, and what a vocal performance as well.
Yeah, it was exactly the same when I heard it for the first time. I heard it on the radio and I thought, oh, hang on, where are we going here? But it's when I got over that it wasn't the classic kind of Bond song, and you got into it. It's actually, I think it stands as it's a top tune if you took it away from the Bond film. It's a kind of tune that when I put it on, as I often do in the car, the accelerator starts getting pressed. I start going a little bit too fast. You know, I'm going to pick up a speeding ticket. I'll be listening to something like that, or on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and you'll think, shit the bed, what's happened here? You know, I'm doing 90 down the M6, because it just carries you away. It's just absolutely top end.
And that's a song that comes up quite a lot in terms of favourite theme songs, because I think most people would say, oh, it'd be Goldfinger, or it'd be Diamonds, or perhaps Live and Let Die, and which are all brilliant songs. But the amount of times this songs get mentioned, I think just shows how good a song it is. And it does sort of, cross the boundaries of what we've heard before. And again, like you said, Tommy, it just suits that film. And it's got so much energy, and that's exactly what Bond has in the film as well. It's just mirror imaging the character, which he does.
It's a very masculine, manly song, and if you read what the media says these days, that's almost a dirty word these days, isn't it? It's like, you know, it really just encapsulates what Bond is. It's like, I suppose my nearest comparison to it would be like Thunderball. That's what I'd call a balls out masculine song. It's like you got Tom Jones, rampant legendary swordsman, singing that. It's all about Bond being a badass. Same kind of vibe. You know what I mean? It's got that same, like, you walk with a strut when you listen to Thunderball. Same thing with this one.
Yeah. But you mentioned some of the other songs. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like all of those kind of things, but you mentioned Diamonds Are Forever, and I think probably the best bit in a Bond song that I like is the I'm not a musician like yourself, Tom, but I think it's the bass piece where it's about halfway through the song, it just goes doom, 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 diamonds.
That's so good.
Oh, that is just the way it comes through. It's great.
Do you know what's funny? I have a very vivid memory of being in the sixth form at Medina High School on the Isle of Wight, and it was when you had the sixth form common room, and it was the first time in your school life where you were given a little bit of freedom to kind of do what you wanted. It was like, you know, free periods and all that. And I remember being in the little sort of coffee making area around the back, and there was a little stereo where you could play music in the common room. And I put Diamonds Are Forever on. And I remember holding court with about 4 or 5 people being, listen to this bass bit, listen to it. And I would play it up to the boom, boom, boom. And then I'd rewind it and listen to it again and again and again. I've literally discussed that little bass lick for a good solid 30 minutes with people when I was at school. It's good, man. Great minds.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes you hear like when people do a cover and they've not got the bass in it, and I'm so disappointed. Warren's band did it last week. They've definitely got the bass in it. Boom, boom, boom.
I tell you what I like about their version of Diamonds Are Forever as well. First time we saw them play, Warren thought I was displeased with their version of Diamonds Are Forever because the guitar player put on some extra wah-wah during the verse, and it was like, Diamonds Are Forever, and he's like, and I was like, yeah, I love me some wah-wah. And Warren looked at my face and thought it was like a grimace of disgust, but it was a grimace of grooving. And yeah, that yeah, belter, absolutely, great tune.
Nice.
The other thing with Diamonds is the ability when, you know, I play it to people who are not Bond fans, you know, because if they sit in my car, they're going to have to listen to some Bond. Those are the rules, kind of thing. And I'll put Diamonds on and I'll say, listen to this song, and I'll just play the intro and tell me what you're thinking about.
Yeah. And
that ability to have a sound that represents shimmering diamond, you know, people say ice diamond, and the ability to make a, I think, is it a synthesized type? I don't know how they make the sound kind of thing, you know, the beginning of it, that kind of like, you know the piece I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
But that ability at the beginning of that song. So I think Diamonds is another good one, which probably comes up in the list, maybe second up to You Know My Name.
So what about musical score out of all the films?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any score that really hits home for you?
I'm going to say what everybody says. It's on Her Majesty's Secret Service. You know, that's
pretty untouchable, isn't it? That one.
Yeah, I think that's Barry at his best. You know, Barry is a legend, isn't he? And you go through there, and he's written so many good things. I think The Living Daylights, that was very synth-driven, very modern at the time. I remember that feeling. It still feels really good exercise at Gibraltar and things like that. You know, listen to those elements. But I've got to go with Her Majesty's Secret Service because, with the exception of Do You Know How Christmas Trees Are Grown, it's absolutely top end. It's
now,
absolutely.
Hang about. Great. Let's not diss on Do You Know How Christmas Trees Are Grown. Come on, that's a Christmas classic.
That's a Christmas classic. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't like listening to Noddy Holder. It's Christmas in July. You know, so I listen to this in July kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
It reminds me very much of like that chitty chitty bang bang type music. You know, the kids love a bit of chitty chitty bang bang, you know, to watch it. But I think it's very much of that era, late 60s. Slightly feels to me slightly Americanized that song in how it is. But the rest of the album, I mean, there's some cracking tunes on there, isn't there? You know, and so I've got it on LP, obviously, but I don't even think I've got the ability to play an LP now. You know, just a a relic from history, aren't they? But they did the extended version, didn't they, on CD about 10 or 15 years ago. So that's a regular day playing the car, you know, going through that. This never happened to the other fella and all that.
I think with a lot of the Bond scores, the pre-titles needs a banging score to back up the action. And I think for the majority, it definitely works. Like when we're going through the music of Bond episodes, when you're choosing your favourite cue, it's so hard not to look beyond the pre-titles sequence music because so much of it is just banging. And it's, and equally with Majesty's, it's just off the cuff. It's so good. I'll tell you the other pieces of action music, which you know, I could hum them like I know a song kind of thing and go all the way through them. Is from For Your Eyes Only, Driving a Country, and the music that accompanies the ski chase and what have you. They're absolutely top end kind of thing. Jo hates it because I get in the car and I'll put a bit of Driving the Country on there. She's like, "Oh, for fuck, not again, kind of." I'm driving along. Waiting to pull along, you know, on the motorway, pull level with somebody in the car next, and I'll just be looking sideways to see if I can catch their eyes, just to give them a wink, and then drive. What a loser!
No, absolutely not. I celebrate that. I've done that many times myself. Absolutely, there was. That's a beautiful thing. The JBR family is a wonderful thing because we all hear these stories and we all do these things, and we realise we're not alone in our lunatic nature. You know? It's great.
In my late 40s, I am Roger Moore in my head when I'm doing that, just winking at an attractive lady and then drive past.
Man, I want to go for a drive now. I want to do that. I've got to do it. Okay, on to question 007, Gary. Now, out of all the Bond locations, and there are many, which would you like to visit the most? And out of the ones that you visited already, which one was your favourite?
Okay. Well, the one which is the most is I'm going to be seeing you guys very soon is Piz Gloria. I think it looks stunning. Just as a location to go to, it looks stunning. But then being wrapped around on Her Majesty's, which is one of the finest films. And, you know, from being that young boy seeing it, you know, I remember going into a travel agent's when I was a kid, and, you know, you don't really see travel agents now, it's all online, isn't it? But they'd have large posters of exotic locations which would whet your appetite for travel kind of thing. And there's one I was brought up in a town called Wigan in Lancashire, and there's one there was a travel agent, you went in there and there was a big picture of Piz Gloria up on the wall. Nice. So I used to walk past when I was going home from school, and this is how sad it was back in, you know, to get a bit of bondage, you know, bondage as in James Bond, obviously not the to walk past the travel agents to look through the window to see the big poster of Piz Gloria, because it was a connection to Bond kind of thing, you know. Yeah. I've never been. I've been to Switzerland, obviously, and I've driven through Switzerland and worked there, but I've never been up to Piz Gloria. So to get up there in May and June for the 50th, which with George, that's going
to be pretty special. I think pretty special.
I imagine lots of people will probably say that as being the the location. And then other places, places I've been, I would probably say for your the amount of bondage you can get per foot walked is probably Venice, because there's so many locations around Venice with. What's it been? 3 films. You got From Russia, Moonraker, and Casino. Yeah. When you walk around, I actually had them down on the phone at the time, and they're actually very walkable. A couple of 3 hours, because it's only a small place anyway, and it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. But that was in the early doors when I was with Joe kind of thing. So we went to Venice for a weekend away, and so I'm walking around the corner. This is where Bond meets Dr. Golly Goodhead coming off the gondola. Which that is it? Oh, yeah. Just take my picture. 5 minutes later, walking around. Oh, this is where the machine gun gets shot in Casino Royale. On the third one, you realise then she's on a Bond walking trip around. But we didn't go to bed that morning. So come on, sweetheart, what do you want to do? Spend the morning walking around Venice looking for Bond locations. But it was just, St. Mark's Road. This is where Chang was thrown out of the window. Yeah.
It's like, let's go on a romantic holiday to Venice, and then when we get there, look, I've got got our own little tour guide going here.
Because there's an island across the lagoon called Lido, and I'm trying to think now. It's in one of the novels. I'm having a brain fart, but one of the novels, it starts off in Lido, so it's not been in a film, but there's also Fleming-esque locations to go there. I don't know. Have you guys ever been to Venice?
Cool.
No, not me.
No, that's hoping next year actually, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a trip. Definitely worth a trip, and it's a bang nice place to go to. And then where else have I been? I've been to. I suppose the furthest going west would probably be San Francisco, Golden Gate Bridge City Hall, and all those kind of things. And I suppose we're spoilt in the UK, aren't we? That there's lots of locations. So the last one I went to was the church from For Your Eyes Only after we left Stoke Porges last week. I thought I'm going to shoot north because I've got to get back. But I thought, it's only a few minutes away. So zap round the corner. Had a bit of a look at that. But I think the other... Sorry.
What did you think of Stoke Park, driving it up that little driveway and seeing it for the first time when it comes out of the trees?
Well, you were giving me loads of signals from the car saying, this is it, this is it. No. So I cranked on a bit of Goldfinger soundtrack. So I've got a cheeky little video of driving up there with the Goldfinger soundtrack in the background. But it is quintessential British style, isn't it, as you drive up there? It's absolutely what is wrapped around as you go into it. And then you pull up in the semicircular arch piece at the front where the main door is, and it is Goldfinger. It's there, isn't it? It's hardly changed apart from a bit of planting, and it's been asphalted rather than a gravel surface. It's absolutely what was there. And when you walk to those kind of locations where they look just it's like the College of Arms in London. I imagine you guys have been there. It's just the chuffing same, isn't it? It's not changed one iota. So you walk into that, and it's just like when the Aston drives into it.
Yeah.
I suppose the one that I was the most pleased with, we went to Siena in Italy, went to the main square and what have you. And this was truly, Joe would never believe this, but we just walked up one of the side streets and we walked past the entrance to, where the Aston drives in at the end of the pre-tunnel sequence.
Yeah.
So when you truly stumble on one, that's kind of like finding the record in 1982 for £2, isn't it?
Yeah,
when you just had the sign where you have that, absolutely, it makes your day, doesn't it?
I had a similar experience in Istanbul. I was in the Grand Bazaar trying to search for the little bit in from Russia where Red Grant's tailing Tanya, and he's just resting his shoulder next to this sort of stone pillar, and he peers around it as she goes to knock on the door where Kleb answers the door and sort of invites her inside. And it took me ages, and I was going around saying, this is it. We're just going to have to make a move. And just as I was about to walk away, I saw these little stone steps leading up. I thought, I'll just have a little look up there. And got to the top and peered around this pillar, and there was the exact same view as from the film. And it just, because it wasn't expected, it made it even better in a way. And totally the same. Absolutely brilliant.
I'll tell you another one, which was one of those magical moments where you don't expect it. I was working down at RAF Northolt on the outskirts of London, and there's been a few Bond films filmed there. And we were working on the opposite side of the airfield to the main site, but we had to go around to get some lunch and what have you. And when you turn the corner and you see the end of the hangar and the brick building where Oddjob, when they fly into Kentucky and walk out and they're waiting for him in the car, it was filmed there. And you drive around the corner and it's right in front of you, and you're just going to get a sandwich. You're just like, whoa! But unfortunately, because it's a military base, you're not allowed to take photographs or anything, so I've got no photographic evidence of being there. But it's just there, The hangar's been reclad, so it's got modern cladding on it. It looked quite battered back in '63, didn't? So it's got a modern cladding on it. But it's absolutely, the taxiway, the building, the hangar, everything's just there. Brilliant.
Nice. Yeah. Cool stuff. All right, then. So I suppose we've learned about your history with Bond. We've learned about what you enjoy about Bond and what you love. What do you want to see from Bond 25? Let's look to the future, Gary. What when you sit down to watch Bond 25 on Valentine's Day 2020, what do you want to see on that screen?
All right. So I want to see a gun barrel at the beginning of the film.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I want to see an opening sequence. So I'm going to go a little bit old school with my look into the future. I like it when the opening sequence is almost like a little mini film of a mission that's happened in between the last film and the next film, and you just see him finishing off. So a classic example is Octopus. It's like its own little contained film of an account in South America. So I want to see something like that coming through there. What else would I want to see? I want to see Daniel in his Royal Naval Commander's uniform.
Very nice.
I think they've got to do it, because if this is going to be his last film, it's one of those iconic shots, the link through. So I'd like to see a bit of that. And then I probably wouldn't want to see Bond going rogue yet again. It could be a personal vendetta type mission, but wrapped around the officiality of it, because it's kind of been a theme, and they may do it on the Daniel films because they've all had him. If you think James Bond, Daniel Craig's James Bond was an employee, you probably have him on a discipline process by now, because he does what he wants. He doesn't do what you're asking him, kind of thing. I'd probably like that, and I don't know if they'll do it, and there's been a lot of talk about it, but a continuation with Blofeld and Shatterhand, I think will be an absolutely great way, to carry it through. And that'd be another really good Fleming story because the film You Only Live Twice bears no resemblance to the novel. There's 2 or 3 characters are pulled forward from it. You've got some proper Fleming that you could mine and modernise, as you did with Casino Royale, and create a story around that. So I'd like something like that. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Exactly that.
I'm huge fans of Shatterhand's storyline, aren't we, Tom? Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think they'll do it?
I think, that rumour from Baz Bambig Boy at the Daily Express, is he Daily Express? He is Daily Express, isn't he? Or is he Daily Mail? I don't know. One of the two.
Mail.
He put that out that Madeline is coming back, and I feel like if Madeline is coming back, then they've got to do it, and there's never been a more appropriate time, aside from obviously after making Majesties, to do that story. And you've got a ready-made belter title, Shatterhand. I mean, it's just right there. So for me, if they trot out the bulk of the You Only Live Twice book, that story that hasn't been mined, Garden of Death, I mean, that's a great thing. Obviously you'd have to tweak it somewhat, but it's a bit bananas, that book, in places, but at the same time, there is some gold in there that we haven't seen on screen. And I feel like this is, I don't think anybody believes that Madeline is going to survive Bond 25. So, let's get her bumped off nice and early, and then let's get the hunt for Blofeld being Bond 25. I feel like that's. But then again, we've got all these Russian characters that we've been told about their casting for. So I don't know. I would love to see it.
But they could set the story in Russia rather than Japan, couldn't they? They could move that, to a different one. So what do you think of Christoph Waltz then? Do you think he should come back as Blofeld?
100%.
Like, there's the idea of, obviously, with previous Blofelds, they've had lots of different incarnations. And one of the listeners who we spoke to actually was sort of mentioning how about someone else, recast as someone else. It would seem a bit strange in this day and age to do that, I think. But equally, I know a lot of people weren't 100% keen on Christoph Waltz as Blofeld, but I think in some scenes, I thought he was brilliant. That whole meteorite scene and that bit when they first get to the crater base, I think he's great. I just think, there were certain parts where he didn't quite come across as well as it should have done. But I don't think that's any fault of the actor. I think it's just maybe some of the what he was asked to do. Perhaps it could have been done in a better way in certain things. So I think if he comes back and does a bang up job, that would quieten some of the sort of critics of him, because he's obviously an amazing actor. He's obviously absolutely outstanding, and he can play the menace and he can play the villain. And I think giving him sort of that second shot just to show what he can do, but with a bit more meaty material, then I think he could really do it well.
Yeah,
if he does come back. That is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when he was confirmed for the last film, I thought, what an inspired casting kind of thing, because I'm sure you guys have seen him in Inglourious Bastards at the beginning with with the, absolutely fantastic, that scene, and the way he comes across, he is sinister and evil. Oh, absolutely great. But it just didn't. I don't know if it's the script or what they made it. It was a little bit disappointing, in that film. And I like Spectre, but I was expecting just a little bit more. I thought he could have been the more sinister, evil Bond. And I like the bit where he's introduced and the cuckoo and all that kind of thing. There's a meteor, and then there's the drill sequence and the likes. But it could have just been that little bit more. So I think to bring him back and get that flavour of like Inglourious Bastards into the would be absolutely superb.
Yeah, it would be great to have some sort of scene like that where it's just Bond and Blofeld sitting across the table from one another, going through a conversation where Blofeld sort of outwits Bond within the conversation, if you know what I mean. You know how in Inglourious, the sort of French farmer doesn't quite know what's happening, and Christoph is kind of manipulating him, his character. I think having Blofeld do that with Bond would be brilliant if they could pull it off, something like that. I think
there's a scene in the book where they're on kind of like a torture type chair. Is it under a geyser or something, which is going through, and so if the end of the film is that Blofeld gets his comeuppance kind of thing, they could build something into it. But we'll see what the professionals do with it. Yeah. But I'd love to see him come back in the next film. I'd like a bit of Arnold as well. I'd like to see a David Arnold score.
Yes, please.
And I'd like to see a lot of Bond theme, wrapped within it. And what they don't seem to have done for a while is when you get a really banging title, because you can listen to a soundtrack, and you know the soundtrack usually by the style of music associated with geographically where the action's taking place, and you get an action theme, a love theme, and the main theme kind of woven through there with a bit of Bond theme. So things like the Man with a Golden Gun, absolutely you can say that's in the Far East, and you've got a dominant song coming through. I like those kind of soundtracks. I think they're great. So something like that for the future. Yeah, we'll see. But it's not long really now, is it? We've been waiting a long time. It's
pretty much a year. Well, it'll be around a year today from when this is released, or give or take a couple of days, won't it? It'll be a year until it's officially released. So I've got one quick question actually, Gary, which this has come up quite a few times, and it's really divided opinion. If obviously this is Daniel Craig's last film, wants to go out with a bang, what is your opinion if at the end of the film Daniel Craig's Bond died?
No.
Definitely not.
No.
What about if it was hinted at that maybe you didn't know how it ended up?
I'd have a bit of that. I do like an ending to a film where you've got to kind of complete the dots. So the classic one is the Italian Job, where the coach is hanging off the what is it now? That's 50 years old. It's up to yourself how that film ends, isn't it? You can imagine they get away with it. They get So I do like that kind of ending, and what that could do is segue into the new dude who's playing Bond. So coming back to the novel, he's concussed at the time, isn't he? And he's set up home in a remote fishing village. You could have something like that, but I don't want to see Bond killed and then another character. No, that's not the James Bond I want. He doesn't get killed. I don't want to see that at all. No, so no. Why do many people say that they do? I mean, is it?
Fair few. It's it is divided. I don't know what the ratio would be, but I've definitely heard certain people say, as it's Daniel's last on its own contained world, separate to the other Bonds, then maybe it could work. But yeah.
What do you guys think? Do you think that will be a good thing?
I think it would be a way of doing something drastically different, wouldn't it? It's something we've never seen before. It would definitely get bums on seats in the cinema, wouldn't it? And it would be interesting, but I don't think I would want to see it. Can you imagine coming out of that film after they kill off Bond? It would be such a downer, wouldn't it? We came out of Spectre literally like jumping in the air because we loved it so much and couldn't get enough of it. And then if you imagine coming out of Bond 25 and he's just been shot in the face, and then that's the end of the film, it would be like, fuck, what did I just watch?
Well, do you remember after Spectre, where everyone was loads of people were saying, "Oh, this could be the end of Bond, the very last film, because he's gone off into the sunset with the girl in the car." Even though that's happened a million times before, suddenly people were saying, "Oh, this could be the last film." If he died, I mean, the media would have a field day on that and just say, "Right, that's it, no more Bond, it's all over," wouldn't they? They'd go crazy over it.
Well, imagine he dies and you get a mournful James Bond theme coming through. He goes through and then they roll the credits and you've got the actors and the main players, and then we thank Bollinger and we thank Aston Martin, and then it goes, ding, James Bond will return. Hang on, he just died.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that?
Or maybe it would say James Bond is dead, and that would be it.
Oh, it could say it.
Yeah.
Will James Bond return with a
question mark?
Could put something like that. That was another thing. Is back in the day, I used to watch the film and sit in the cinema right till the end. The dudes are coming around sweeping up and taking the popcorn up, and I want to take every last second of bondage because I wanted to see back in the day what the next film was going to be. When James Bond will returning from A View to a Kill. It's A View to a Kill, and to see that. But we've not had that for a long time now, have we? We just had James Bond will return kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that at the end of the film.
Yeah.
So I've actually just one more question has just popped into my mind. If you had the final script to Bond 25 prior to the release date, so say you get the script 1st of January, New Year's Day, you wake up, Bond 25 script is delivered to your door. You have a month to decide. Would you read the script or would you wait until you've seen the film?
I think I would have the emotional intelligence to resist reading it, but there'd be a burning desire deep in my lungs to go and read it, because there's something absolutely special, and it only happens a few times to see a Bond film for the first time and just take the experience and go with the journey. So in those early days where you would see that 1 or 2 or 3 a year because they were coming on TV, you'd never seen them before, but you get rapidly over about a 2 or 3 year period, and then you're kind of like up to the latest films, and then you're waiting. It used to be on a 2-year cycle, and then it can go to 6 years. So no, I want to be immersed in the experience and go in there and wait for it to say the British Board of Film Classification to come up there, and then you go, and you're thinking, whoa, here we go.
Here we go, Sam. Here we go. Yeah, absolutely.
All the way through to the end. And, so I often think, you share that experience with other people. And you're thinking, you walk in there, and I think that I should have the VIP box, because for American listeners won't get this, but I think I'm the only gay in the village. You remember that reference to Little Britain kind of thing? In this cinema full of people watching this film, there was no bigger Bond fan than me. There should be an elevated box with like sounding, proofing around it so I can't hear people eating popcorn while I immerse myself in this experience, which is so important to me. I'm probably passing you guys by kind of thing, So that first viewing of a Bond film is really special, so I probably wouldn't spoil it for myself, but you get that period where it's all over the press and you start seeing things in the story, so you kind of get the tune of what they're doing. But I don't want to go deep into it and have the spoilers and things. I want to watch the film.
Good move. That's precisely what I would do. I had the same thing with Spectre. I had the script beforehand, couldn't bring myself to open it. But you got to take it fresh on that first viewing for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it's been great to have you. Thank you for joining us, man. You've had the luxury of being the last interview we've done, because everybody else we've done back to back. So there's always been like, right, we've got to go because the next person's waiting for the call, and obviously there's nobody waiting after you. So we've had the luxury of going long today. You've got the longest interview out of everybody.
Right, you're going to edit it down though. You're going to have to get it into a little package, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. 5 minutes tops, I think.
Nicely done. But thanks for joining us, man. It's always good a good time to chat Bond with the Bootle.
And obviously we look forward to our next mission in at the end of May, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. Cannot wait.
Correction Bedlam, looking forward to that. But, just got to say, guys, I know I wait every 2 weeks to listen to the podcast, and I usually put it on when I'm driving to work and what have you, and I get a lot of entertainment. You guys must put the hours in to do this, to research it. And a lot of us out here, you're doing it for nothing. Really appreciate what you're doing. So keep up the good work. Really appreciate it. And thanks a lot, lads.
No worries, man.
Cheers,
it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely.
No problem.
Nice one. All right, take it easy. Have a good one, Gary.
Take it easy.
Bye.
See you soon, man.
Bye.
Mate, I want that Albert R. Broccoli 007 stage sign.
It's
I want
huge,
it.
Tom. It is massive. Like you said, it is. What do you say? It was 4 foot thing. It's like that first photo. It looked like maybe the size of a laptop or something like that. But it's massive. And that picture of him where it's sort of illuminated, he's just sitting in front of it. That is Bond history, Pinewood history. Cubby, Broccoli, 007 stage. That is incredible. Absolutely brilliant.
And I wonder if you give it a sniff, whether you can smell any smoke damage on it, because that would be even better. I'd like that. Do you know what I mean? Because then that's a real piece of history, isn't it? From when it burnt down,
Cool.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah.
That would be cool. But yeah,
definitely.
Always a good time chatting to Mr. Bootle, isn't it?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And he had some interesting stories about that LP that he collected, the greatest mix of Bond. Yeah. And I love the way that he turned it around, and his Bond knowledge was the title is just on the back. And your mind, right? So say you've never seen a Bond, or you've only seen Spy. You look on the back of this thing, you see a title: The Man with the Golden Gun, Live and Let Die, Goldfinger, Thunderball. Suddenly, all these images are forming in your head of what they might mean, but you don't know yet. I mean, that is an exciting time, man.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's like we were saying earlier. It's like there's a magic to those breadcrumbs of discovery that you just don't get these days. It's kind of like you can Google anything and know anything in the blink of an eye, which is a wonderful thing, and it makes life very convenient, and it's great. But at the same time, there is a magic missing out of that in all things, because I often find if it's like time to sit down and watch a movie and I'm cruising through Netflix or whatever, I find it difficult to settle with something because everything is so instant. I'm like, okay, I'll watch this film. If like within 5 minutes, I'm like, I'm not feeling this, I turn it off and I'm going on to something else, And I have had evenings where I've watched 10 minutes of about 3 or 4 different things before I've been like, oh, fuck this, I'm bored now, I'm going off.
It's weird when that happens, isn't it? But totally.
But back in the day, it would be time to watch, it would be movie night, so let's go down the video shop. Mine was called Farley's in Ventnor on the Isle of Wight. Go down Farley's, rent a video.
I had Blockbusters.
And you were committed to that video. And if you hadn't seen it before, you sat down and you watched the whole thing and you committed to it. It was the same with music as well. You'd go into HMV, you'd buy a CD, and even if you didn't like it, you would keep listening it and you would try and develop a taste for it. And then even if you didn't like it after a week, you probably took it back and exchanged it. But a lot of the time, I can think of some of my favorite music these days were things I didn't like to begin with, but I made myself keep listening to it because I'd spent $12.99 on it or whatever. Yeah, and these days, it's just like, one track, don't like it, 5 seconds in, next one, and it's just not the same connection. That's a sad thing.
Everything has to be instant, and I guess that's where word of mouth becomes so powerful, because if you're not hooked on something straight away with people these days, like you said, they just sort of sack it off and don't worry about it. But so there are so many things that they might not look at unless you've got that word of mouth, unless it's your mate that says, you might not have watched this, but you've got to check this out or hear this band or whatever. And that's a powerful thing, because otherwise it's just 2 seconds, boom, not enough, out it goes, sort of thing. But that's just the way it is, isn't it? You got to. You can be nostalgic about the times of a bygone era where that wasn't around, but obviously that's the way things are going to be, and it's going to get even more so. Like you're going to have it on your watch. Maybe a projection comes up from your watch, and you just watch a film like that. And there'll be stuff like that going on. That's probably being made at the moment. So changes all the time, but so long as you can sit down, there's one thing in life, you know that you'll be able to sit down, watch a Bond movie, and the world is a good place during those 2 hours or whatever. It's like, yes, man, the world is good. Absolutely. I am focused, I'm watching my Bond, I'm being entertained, and that is what they were made for, I think.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. So there we have it. That about rounds out our 5th anniversary celebrations for the kind of the normal JBR show. Obviously, for the next couple of weeks, JW will be taking over with the music episodes with more listener interviews. Obviously, musical based. So the quickfire questions are going to have a bit of a musical flavour compared to what we've done for the last couple of weeks. So there's that to look forward to. And then I tell you what, Chris, mate, after that, it's going to be prime time, isn't it? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I'm talking about Bond 25. Because here we are, we're in February now. They're going to start shooting really soon. So we're going to have all the news coming out, all the excitement, all the bondage. And I'm really pumped for that happening. I'm very excited for it.
Mate, it's going to start with, well, we already know we've got some locations, and we've got Norway, we've got Italy, so there's things like that are starting to come through, and I think we're going to get a bit more on sort of cast soon, maybe hints of story, potentially vehicles, cars, everything like that. And man, this is where it really starts to get exciting now.
Yes.
Really starts to get
exciting. The build up, like I've said before, the build up to me is as exciting as watching the film itself, depending on whether the film's any good or not. But the build up is, because that's when your imagination is firing on all cylinders. Oh, I wonder what this is going to be. I wonder what that's going to do. I wonder what they're going to do here and what they're going to do there. There's going to be so much cool stuff. Obviously, we'll have the title, we'll have the prime cast, we'll have they always do that little one line sort of like hint, don't they, of like, well, M's past comes back to haunt her or whatever, and it's like, ooh, what's that all about? You know what I mean? We're going to have one of those, it's going to be and then obviously later on down the line we'll have who's doing the song and all the rest of it. I think the thing I'm most excited about is what they're going to call it. I think title reveal. I was just about to say that, man. I think one of my favourite moments in the history of my fandom is when I'm sitting there glued to my laptop watching the stream and seeing the letters come up on the screen that just spelt Spectre, and I absolutely lost my mind as soon as I saw that word. That was something I'd wanted since I was a child, and finally there it was, and I couldn't believe I was seeing it. So for me, here's my prediction. Here's what I'm hoping. Right. That I sit down and I see a little S appear, and a little D, and then an A, and then some T's, and then it's going to spell out Shatterhand. If that happens, Chris, I'm going to be dry humping the person nearest to me. I don't care who it is. They're going to get some Tommy action on the go, because that will please me. But it might be something completely different. It might be something completely different.
Of course, but either which way, 100%, we have to do that online sort of viewing, mutual viewing. We'll get all the JBR community watching that unveil at the same time. Yeah. Get the excitement going, get the messages flowing, and it's going to be a beautiful day. Yes, sir, a beautiful day.
Indeed it will. All right, everybody. It's an exciting time to be a Bond fan. Thank you to all of our guests for the last couple of episodes. It's always good to get to know everybody, where they're coming from their bondage, and some exciting times to come too. So, you'll see JW next week with the first of the music anniversary episodes. So we will see you very soon. I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And James Bond Radio will return. See you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye.